Tō katoa, nau mai haere mai ki tēnei hui o te kaunihera o ngā roto o Rotorua. Good morning everyone and welcome to our Rotorua Lakes Council meeting on this day, Wednesday 25th of June. Just a reminder that this is being live streamed and we will look to take a morning break at 11 a.m. I'd just like to open us up with the karakia. Tūtaua mai runga, tūtaua mai raro, tūtaua mai roto, tūtaua mai waho. Kia tau ai, te mauri tū, te mauri ora ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tae ki. Thank you. A call for any apologies? There appear to be none. We are expecting Councillor Patterson and Councillor Waru to join us soon. Oh, and sorry, I do note that there is an apology from Councillor Maxwell. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for Councillor Maxwell? Thank you. That's moved by Councillor Barker, seconded by Councillor Lee. All those in favour to accept that apology, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Any declarations of interest today? No. Any urgent items not on the agenda? Any minor matters? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just like to acknowledge that sitting over there behind Councillor O'Brien is an empty chair in the media arena, the seat that's usually filled by Laura Smith, who has served us well for best part of 3 years, I believe, and I understand she's found alternative employment in Wellington. So just like to say I think she's done a wonderful job as an independent media, doing what the Fourth Estate is supposed to do. And it's always been interesting to watch her take on what happens around this table.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lee, and we do wish Laura all the best in her continued career in journalism, marketing and communications. There appear to be no further minor matters, so we will move on to confirmation of the minutes. Can I please have a mover and a seconder for the council meeting on the 11th of June? Minutes be accepted. That's moved by Councillor Kaifong, seconded by Councillor Barker. Were there any corrections required? There appear to be none. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. So we go to our first notice of motion for the day. This is on page 3 of the separate attachment in Stella. And this is a notice of motion from Deputy Mayor Kai Fong. I'll just ask for a mover and a seconder before we open up if there's any discussion. And this is the Chief Executive be directed to stop all further work on the Waikawa Hannahs Bay Reserve project.
So I'll move.
It's moved by Councillor Kaifong, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. And I'd just like to invite Councillor Kaifong if you wish to speak to this motion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just recently we've been looking at options for funding Tarawera, also just looking at what our final rates figure will be when we strike the rate in the annual plan. And this was one matter where during our long-term plan deliberations, I'm not sure that this project came to our notice because it was in a line under a different heading of Parks and Reserves. One of the things was during that long-term plan discussion is that we had said that we would focus on priority spending areas and those core services, complying with regulatory and legal, but those projects that were not necessarily seen as core or essential would be below the line and there would not be priority spending allocated to them. This project had $10 million allocated to it. $500,000 was to be spent next year. There is a budget currently for renewals which will allow any jetty repairs to be done, but I think that to simply move a jetty and put a brand new car park in a different area is nice to have at the moment, but we have priority spending areas where we need funding in wastewater and stormwater. Just to allay any concerns, the proposal is simply to pause this project until our finances improve and a future council can make a decision as to when this project would be restarted. There's no other reason for pausing this project. It's not that we want to turn this reserve into housing or for any other reason. So it was just in terms of budgetary constraints, is it absolutely necessary to spend $10 million or at least the $500,000 that's been allocated for next year? So that's the reason for a request to pause all further work on the reserve.
Thank you very much. We'll now open up for any questions or discussion at the same time. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you know, I serve on the Waikawa Bay Reserve Committee, formerly known as Hannah's Bay Reserve. So I've had the pleasure of sitting around the table many times with the good people on the Waikawa Bay Committee. And there's certainly people who love their reserve and they are keen to progress it and make things happen, and they've got an awful lot done already with establishing the wetlands that were part of the arrangement with Rotorua Airport when the airport was extended. They're certainly ambitious about the reserve that they love, and they've gone to a lot of trouble. They've developed a master plan, and they certainly have progressed their plans an awful long way down the path. As I sat around the table, I have wondered what my colleagues would think of all of the expenditure that they would have in mind, and I was surprised when it didn't come before us during the long-term plan process. And I think I started mentioning this 9 months ago. This sort of expenditure does need to come before us for consideration, and as it hasn't, I would have to support this notice of motion brought by Councillor Kaifong. So I think it's only right and proper that we do pause work at this time until it is properly consulted. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. So the first time I heard about the Waikawa restoration project, I thought, what a magnificent project. Through Tātou Pōnamu, I've seen it progress. The passion for restoring that beautiful wai to its former self is quite evident. And then, actually it was only last month's hui, or maybe the month before, I heard about this other project. And I'm thinking, I haven't heard about this other than what Councillor Lee just raised. And there it was, in a report at the Tātou Pōnamu hui, and yet it's never come before us. I found that quite confusing. So I also support Councillor Kaifong's motion.
Thank you very much. Any further comments? No, there appear to be none. Look, I do want to acknowledge that, yes, there has been significant work undertaken, especially from community groups in Rotorua and around Waikawa Hannah's Bay Reserve. At this time, this council is not in a position to progress with the financial contributions that will be needed, but I do acknowledge that the work of which there was a significant amount of money allocated would not have happened until future years, so would still be up for a future council to be able to confirm what work could be underway at a time most appropriate and most affordable to the community. So that has been moved by Councillor Kaifong, seconded by Councillor O'Brien. I'll now put that to the vote. All those in favour, please say, please raise your hand. Any against? That's carried. Thank you. The next notice of motion was from myself. This was to instruct the Chief Executive to seek further external funding during the financial year commencing 1st of July, was actually supposed to be 2026, sorry, to alleviate the overall financial costs for Lake Tarawera ratepayers who are required to connect to the Tarawera sewage reticulation, which should include a request for a grant or more favourable loan conditions to the newly elected Baplenty Regional Council, as well as support from central government and any other funder. There has been quite significant work undertaken since then, and when I put this as a notice of motion for this meeting, I believed that we will be taking the final vote on this now. We are actually going to be doing that on Friday, and the 27th, and we do anticipate that we'll be able to give a positive update there on all of the work that's been undertaken to find external funding. So what I'm going to do is I will remove this notice of motion. I don't intend to put it on Friday, but we are looking forward to providing a positive update then. So we will carry on to the next agenda item. So we don't have any presentation, so we'll go straight to staff reports. We're going to start with local alcohol policy adoption, and then just letting you know I'm going to bring forward the local water done well deliberations immediately after that. So we do invite John Paul Gaston and also Alexandra. Thank you for the work you've been doing to the table, and I do ask for a mover and a seconder that the report Local Alcohol Policy 2025 adoption be received. Thank you. That's moved by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Wang. All those in favour to receive, please say aye. Aye. Any against? That's carried. And we hand over to John Paul and Alexandra.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I just start? This is a very much an administrative paper for you here today, and it really brings together the decisions that you have made, and also and I'd like to properly acknowledge Alex and Greg's significant work that has gone into preparing the LAP. So, councillors, I think Alex is here more to answer any questions if there is any, but I just wanted to make sure we acknowledge the significant amount of work that's gone into making sure that we have a robust and fit-for-purpose policy.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, folks, for your hard work in pulling all of this together. I just have one question concerning the Lakeland Queen liquor licence. I mean, there's a lovely little map that talks about the CBD area, which would include the area where the Lakeland Queen docks. So I presume that would be covered by the CBD policy as opposed to the non-CBD policy?
I unfortunately can't confirm that right now, but happy to discuss this afterwards. I'm not in the regulatory team, but I'm sure they would be happy to discuss this. If you have any follow-up questions, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, well, the significance is that the Lakeland Queen new owners are wanting to have a liquor licence, and I think our colleagues made...
Point of order.
Yeah,
relevance.
It's
how can this not be relevant?
Because we're talking
sorry,
about...
Councillor, we are currently adopting the Local Alcohol Policy 2025.
Yes.
This sets the policies, which are essentially the rules for when people are either seeking or do have a liquor licence.
Exactly.
So if the Lakeland Queen, that would be an individual matter to be determined at a separate time, not at a full council meeting.
So my question was, and it's obviously relevant, is...
I apologise, it was not relevant.
Excuse me, I'm asking a question about the application of the liquor licence that we're being asked to adopt here, as it pertains to the Lakeland Queen.
Apologies, that is not what we are discussing. We are looking to adopt the local alcohol policy. This has had significant community consultation and also deliberations already by this council. As a reminder, this is including on licences, off licences, things like operating hours, not individual licences.
Right, and so my question is that the Lakeland Queen would be applying for a liquor licence under this policy, would they not?
I have no idea, sorry. The owners have not confirmed with me.
Perhaps we could let the speakers answer the question.
So yes, it depends when they put their application in. So this policy will come into force on the 1st of August. So prior to that, if they apply now, for example, they'll be under the current policy. If it's a non-licence that they're applying for, there are no changes between the old policy and the new policy, so everything should be the same in that regard.
Right, okay, thank you. That answers my question, and obviously it was perfectly relevant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a good answer. Not so great question, though. Any further questions? There appear to be none. I do want to acknowledge that, yes, there has been significant work underway, and so we do acknowledge the staff who have prepared this, but we do also acknowledge the many members of our community that also participated and took up the opportunity to have their say. We have taken those on board, and we will now put this to the vote. So I do ask for a mover and a seconder that Council adopt the Local Alcohol Policy 2025. That's been moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Barker. We'll put that to the vote, and I ask you to please raise your hand. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? Thank you. And we do note Councillor Brown abstained. Thank you very much. That has been passed. So I do rule that we'll consider the item 10.7 next. So this is our plan for our water, local water done well deliberations. So that's the 10.7 on your agenda. So I do ask for a mover and a seconder that the report Plan for Our Water, Local Water Downwell Deliberations be received. That's moved by Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Brown. All those in favour to receive, please say aye. Aye. Any against? That's carried. And I'd now like to invite Stavros forward to overview the report. And we also welcome Russell.
Morena Tati katoa. Good morning, Your Worship. We intend to take the report as read. The report canvasses the key objectives of the consultation held with the community and identifies a way forward consistent with the emerging legislation in terms of the three waters management for the future, and makes a number of recommendations for the for elected members' consideration, and obviously there's some discussion. We do outline within the reports the background to them, to those proposals, and identify a path forward with a number of preferred approaches. And we believe that the preferred option trajectorizes the response to these legislative changes in a way that enables the Council to be able to conduct a detailed assessment of a multi-council water services in a CCO in the future with appropriate time. It allows certainty for our water services customers or our users for the next 3 years as evaluation of a potential multi-council CCO is undertaken, and allows appropriate time for an engagement with our stakeholders, including Manafeno, with which we have significant relationship protocol agreements and other community groups on which water services delivery system is best, on which system is best for Rotorua over the long term. And also allows the Council to learn from other councils what the setup multi-council organisation may look and what are the relative costs and merits on a more advanced time frame. And again, it signals to the government that their intentions are not ignored, but we also are undertaking due diligence to make sure that appropriate consideration in the impacts and effects or potential benefits of a multi-council CCO are valid on the basis of the baseline, which is an in-house operation that's been established as our fundamental baseline to compare benefits and disbenefits from another arrangement. And noting that obviously between now and September this year, we do have to submit to the Departmental Affairs a delivery plan on the basis of an in-house delivery unit or potentially a CCO unit. So the DI can do their own due diligence and advise us whether they identify any issues that they need to address. But to the best of our knowledge, that delivery plan as it stands at the moment, highlights that there are marginal benefits or marginal differences between a CCO and a council in-house approach. However, that delivery plan is intended to be brought back to you for consideration later in July, before it's submitted to the DIA, and the Chief Executive provides a certification of that of the delivery plan. And the Departmental Affairs will interface with us to identify any issues that we need to respond to. So the report is read, the recommendations are ahead of you, and I will leave it in your hands, one, to take any questions you may have, and two, to consider the recommendations in front of you and make some decisions. And maybe Andrew would like to add some comments to that.
Thank you, Stavros. Through you, Your Worship, this is quite a complex set of resolutions that we've put in front of you, and that's because there are a number of decisions embedded within here that we need to make. So very happy to take any questions. I have been quite closely involved with the other councils, both across the Bay of Plenty and with the smaller grouping that you've identified as a preferred grouping to work with. So very happy to take questions on any of that, but also to take questions on the sequence and why the sequence, the way we've outlined it, is important to get correct and get precise directions on from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stavros and Andrew. We will open up for questions, but just to confirm, we will be taking each number of recommendation as a separate vote as we go through. And I have sent an email to the councillors on what my personal view is on the preferred, in which I would be seeking to move as a starting point. But we will open up for any questions on this now. Question from Councillor Kaifong.
Thank you, Chair. I think it would be useful if the CE could just highlight the sequencing and why it's important that we have potentially an option and then another option and then a fallback option, because effectively that's what that resolution is looking at, rather than us just deciding on an option today.
Thank you, Councillor Kaifong. We'll just attempt to get the flowchart that's also been uploaded to Stella on the screen. Councillors, as you can see, you've got a council decision in front of you today. We have attempted to structure it in a way that puts the first decisions first. And the first decision we're looking for is whether you would like us to pursue work on a multi-council CCO at all, which through workshops we've heard indications that is of appetite to this council. It's also important to note that that is definitely the government direction for under this legislation, and in recent meetings that we've had with ministers, they have also indicated that. There's a letter Minister Watts sent to the mayors in the Bay of Plenty that's been attached to a previous agenda that's been available to you, and you can see that the government is very clear in their direction that they're seeking both larger groupings and the councils to avail themselves of the instruments called water services CCOs that are created under the legislation. So the first option, the first decision is to give you the option to consider that. However, the time frame is relevant because we have not advanced detailed discussions and planning on a joint water services CCO as some other councils have and other groupings have, for example, the Waikato councils and potentially Wellington councils as well. So the time frame, what the time frame allows us to do is it allows us to, with the next council, over the year leading up to the preparation of the next long-term plan, allows the elected members of this council, following the elections, to work with elected members of other councils to develop a joint model of a CCO and then bring that back to each council to verify and approve or not approve as part of the next long-term plan decision making. That will then, because that is a decision for a future council, we still need to provide to central government a fallback option in case that council doesn't take up the joint water services CCO. The fallback option needs to be decided by this council because we need to include that in the water services delivery plan that we need to submit to the minister by the 3rd of September this year. So whilst it might appear unusual to decide on a fallback option now, it is required that we do because we need to submit a plan to the DIA for approval by September, which is not contingent on a future council decision. So there will be one pathway that is dependent on a future council decision, but the fallback option cannot be. And that's why we have then, the last part of the decision is for this council to decide what is that fallback option for this council. Is it a single council water services CCO, or is it a in-house business unit within council? And that is the last decision, 5A or 5B, that you can see on your screen.
Thank you. We're open for questions now. Councillor Kaifong.
Just on that last point then. So in the fallback position, we can go CCO or in-house business unit. And is there if we take a in-house business unit, we can then become a CCO, or if we're a CCO, we can become a business in-house, or not?
Thank you, Councillor. So generally, councils have the ability to decide whether they form a CCO or not. However, if you choose to indicate today that you will form a CCO and that is put into the Water Services Delivery Plan and approved by the Minister, it is unclear if a future council can change that decision or the future council will be bound to it. My understanding is that a future council will be bound to following whatever is an approved Water Services Delivery Plan. So in that sense, to answer your question, you couldn't go from saying you're doing a CCO to not. However, I believe it would be more favourably viewed by the IA to go the other way. So if we indicated we were going to do a in-house business unit and that plan was approved, then a future council, I believe, would be permitted to create a water services CCO. The reverse would not be true, in my view.
Thank you very much. A question from Councillor Barker and then Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. Just to clarify, CE, it's actually a requirement of government that we have this fallback option. Is that correct?
Through you, Your Worship, it's a requirement of government that we submit a 10-year plan. And in order for us to submit a 10-year plan, but still give a future council the decision about whether they join a joint water services CCO or not, we need to provide a plan that anticipates either of those decisions. We cannot submit a plan which requires detailed financial information for a joint CCO at the moment because we don't have that information. We haven't been instructed by this council to prepare it, so we don't have it to the level that would be required for the plan. So our approach will be to submit the backup option as a plan with the understanding that any future council will only make a decision that's better or that has better financial outcomes, better quality outcomes than what we submit and what is approved by the Minister. I'll just make a point that all of this is still subject to the Minister approving our plan, which we'll only find out after the elections.
Thank you. That clarifies for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just in recent media reports, maybe I got the wrong end of the stick, but just clarifying, if I may, if the Minister does not like what we do, decide to settle upon, the Minister has the power to change that and impose what he or she may think. Is that correct?
Councillor, through you, Your Worship, my understanding is that following the Minister receiving the plan, the Minister will assess it and either provide direction or send the plan back to Council for Council to revise based on advice or direction. The Minister has broad powers under the Act to act as she or he sees fit. Certainly my intention is to avoid us getting a plan, submitting a plan that is any way amended by central government, because that would put the future council in a very, very awkward position of inheriting a plan that's not approved.
Thank you. And my second question goes to a recent report in the media about Kawerau's direction, and basically that regardless of their residents' feedback during the consultation, that did not wish to pursue a multi-council CCO, that they are still open to that concept. Is that your understanding?
Councillor, I've been in touch with the chief executives of the various councils because I was anticipating your question, and they have a meeting on the 9th of July to make that determination, and that would be for their council to decide. The Mayor might want to comment.
And just in the discussions that have occurred between the mayors as well, it has been the preference across all of the districts that we're looking at Kawerau Whakatangi o Pōtiki to stay local, to stay in-house. But given the strong direction that has come from this government as well, including discussions with Minister Simon Watts, it has been very clear that they wish us to look at seeking a much wider regional plan, which is why we have gone out with our consultation as well with the preferred option of being in-house until the 1st of July and allowing us time to really look into the figures and the potential benefits of going together or not, which, as mentioned, we don't have that level of detail yet.
Thank you.
I do just have a question. I'm aware that other councils in our region and elsewhere who already were progressing with going towards the direction of a water services CCO have recently received funding from government, sometimes around the $200,000 mark. We were not receivers of that. In fact, we received communications from the Minister that we need to hurry up and look at being summarising, that we need to continue progressing along the track of a wider regional CCO. Was that funding only given, are we aware if that funding was given to other councils but not ourselves, because we have not yet progressed towards a CCO?
Your Worship, I don't have sufficient evidence to comment either way. There's been hearsay, but I'm not willing to.
Just to clarify, Council received funding earlier from the Better Off funding, which we are using at the moment to to help us, structure our delivery plan and pay for the services of specialist consultants. So we already had some Crown funding to that effect. Now, I'm not aware whether the Crown actually extended direct funding to people who say, we're forming a CCO, but we have historical funding that was allowed to be used for these other purposes.
Yeah, there's been subsequent correspondence that Council is referring to that we did not receive, but other councils allegedly did.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to check that there wasn't some sort of incentive funding that we were aware of and chose not to, but that sounds like that's the case. So, okay, any further? Sorry, that sounds like that's not the case. Any further questions? No. So, councillors, I did send, just to assist, an email to you all highlighting the preferred options that I'd like to suggest. I do know there is another councillor, so I will be proposing as a starting point 2B. I do know there's another councillor that was interested in 2A. So how we will do this is we'll put it to the vote. If it loses, then we will go to the next option and either approve or lose it. Hopefully something's approved. And we will carry on 2, 3, 4, and then 5.
Forgive me, point of clarification, Your Worship. Sorry, so in regards to A, if we go through that first in order, are we having discussion as well?
Yes, but
so
I just need a mover and a
motion.
seconder. So I'll move to B, seconded from Councillor Kaifong, and now we're open for discussion.
On 2B?
On 2B. But,
okay, thank you.
Sorry. To make this simple, we will open up for discussion on any thoughts on 2A or B, and then we'll put that to the vote. Yeah, so perhaps I'll start as the mover. So I would like to suggest the in-house business unit until 1st of July. What that does, 1st of July 2028, and then transitioning to a Water Services Council controlled organisation. What that does is allow sufficient time to be able to collect the evidence, the data, and any potential benefits, and also have an opportunity for a future council to engage and consult with the community on what those potential benefits or not may be as well. It's been very clear from the direction from this government and also from the other parties in opposition that going towards a CCO or a wider regional service plan is their preference. So from my perspective, the writing's on the wall, and I also want to make sure that we are not pushing it through too fast without the opportunity for our community to be able to fully understand what this will mean for them. I know there are a lot of concerns about taking on other councils' debt, who pays for what, and those are the sorts of discussions I wish to have, as well as seeing what are our needs as Rotorua, and would forming a CCO allow us to be able to borrow more money to be able to deliver those key projects for our community as well. We don't fully understand that yet, so that is why I'm proposing we do remain in-house. I do appreciate when the local water done well was Three Waters. We heard very strongly from our community, and many of us also committed to keeping this local. We also have significant iwi relationships and partnerships, as they are private landowners on or around our key water services as well. So I do think that we need to have sufficient time, and that's why I'm proposing 2B. But we open up for discussion now on any option A or B that you wish to speak to. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would be supporting option A, so I won't be voting in support of this. Three Waters was a major hot potato politically. I recall the Taxpayer Union organising a nationwide series of public meetings. I was involved in organising the one here in Rotorua, along with Councillor Barker. We had a tractor protest that wound its way through town and ended up with speeches in front of the museum. Generally speaking, I've been very pleased with the new government. I've enjoyed having the tailwinds coming from Wellington on a whole range of topics, but I think they have not delivered what they promised to deliver when it comes to this particular Three Waters issue. They said, vote for us because what we're going to do something different from the Labour government with its Three Waters. And they've come up with local water done well. And then we're being, I would say, heavy-handed by the minister. And he's pushing us, behind the scenes mostly, to go with a CCO together with a whole bunch of other councils. Well, that makes local waters done well a misnomer, doesn't it? What he really means is regional waters done well. The only significant difference that I've been able to discern between what Labour proposed with Three Waters and this local waters, regional waters done well, is who decides who will be in the various, quotes, regions. And the minister is putting that onus onto us councils. Well, that's very nice for the minister, who might not want to suffer the political pushback from that. And so we're being put in a position where we have to take the political pushback for our decision, because it's now our decision as to which other councils we join. The purpose of the Local Government Act is to enable democratic local decision making. I'm sorry, Minister, what's been proposed here with regional waters done well is inconsistent with the purpose of the Act. Sure, they're Parliament, they can do what they like, I get that. But it's nevertheless inconsistent with the principle of local decision making. I think decisions are best made locally, and that's where I think we should end up. I would remind my colleagues that we are all politicians and we know what it is to be lobbied by people, and it's our job, I think, part of our job, to lobby central government when necessary as well. And by voting for 2A here, we will be sending a message to the minister that we don't like the predicament that you've put us in. We support local decision making. We think we can do a better job at local decision making. We can't see the financial benefits that would come from a widely geographically spread bunch of councils working together, bearing in mind that the whole idea for this came from Auckland, where there were a whole bunch of councils that were adjacent to one another. So I don't think I'm not persuaded at all that there are financial benefits by scale to be gained from working with other councils. I asked that question when the Department of Internal Affairs were here. I received no good answer from them on that. So I'll be supporting an in-house business unit for those reasons. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm afraid, sorry, I won't be supporting option 2B either. The first reason is I oppose Three Waters because it went against my whole of local representation and local decision making and even local consultation. To go down another minor route, but same thing, dressed up in different ribbons or packaging, doesn't sit well with me. I don't believe I have the mandate, based on the promises I gave, to be signing us over, whether it's in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, without facing the people first and talking to them about why I made the decision I did and the options that were put in front of us. This particular option, I think, came from staff, if I remember rightly, and I appreciate that it meets the requirements of the Minister, which, we shouldn't be blind to, because they are the government, essentially, and they will make final determinations. But at this stage, I'm willing to test that. And should the Minister in his capacity decide that our plan is not sufficient, well, he can make that call. And then next year in October, I get to make a call. And the Minister can, live with that, the consequences, and also his government. For me, there are still far too many questions around the models that are alive. Wellington, for example. Sorry, is it 6 councils, I think? 6, whatever. That are involved in that, and we all know the troubles that they've had. The other option, Auckland. Watercare doesn't have, shall we say, a perfect record in either being able to provide for water or administering it properly. So, and you only also, let's bear in mind how many sewage breaks out into their oceans come every time there seems to be a storm up in Auckland. So when you look at these live models of so-called cooperation and, synergies and efficiencies, the models we have in front of us aren't flicking my dial, I'll be honest. So I look at what's happening now. I'm very concerned that still many of our questions that you yourself, Your Worship, have asked, of the DIA, of the Commerce Commission, etc., can't be answered at this stage. Quite often they say, I'm sorry, until we see the final legislation, until we know how things and regulations are enacted, a lot of us are still up in the air. That doesn't sound very good policy to me. I also have a concern that's been raised by various iwi and hapu that we've put in agreements with, and who have said to me, how does this work? And, to my knowledge, it'll be, we cover this in the statement of intent that all agreements will pass to the CCO, which is also a misnomer because we don't control it. It's a council-owned corporation. We don't control it. They could decide tomorrow to have water meters, and there's already, I'm sure you've all seen in the media, Hawke's Bay jumping up and down about articles in the local press about, a $5,000 increase over 10 years potential. We don't know what those figures would look like yet, so why I would be voting to impose such huge jumps if they're practical here. Also, to the Minister, I would say this council has done a lot of work, not just this council, to be fair, in previous trienniums. We are putting considerable resource and expense towards these schemes, whether it be sewage assisted by the Regional Council or our own recovered water. I think we're pledging $104 million. So this council does have a very good record and a good legacy. Nothing's been perfect, I accept that. But we are doing our best. We are aware of financial pressures while still trying to achieve the main aims of what the Minister wants. Now, I'm not opposed to reform, far beyond. Nothing can stay the same forever. but really important to take the community with you. And I don't think that if we vote for 2B today, we can honestly say we're taking the community with us. In fact, if anything, I think we'd actually be dividing many people yet because we can't answer their questions and concerns. So for me, 2A is the option, and I'm sorry I won't be able to support 2B at this time, but thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. Like my colleagues, I also have grave doubts about CCOs in terms of this particular process. Rotorua would have to be one of the richest places in all of Aotearoa, New Zealand, with regards to our water. We have more lakes, we have more beautiful streams, rivers than probably anywhere else. And they are the asset of our people. And we need to protect them. They've been here before we were, and they will be here again well after we're gone. So, to me, the idea of handing it over to some faceless CCO who has no ability to be voted in or voted out by our community is dangerous. We would be giving up our golden egg, I guess you could say. It's the one thing that sets us apart from our culture, is our beautiful water. And to hand that over to a CCO who has no real link to the decisions that they make, they can't be held accountable apart from being sacked. So what? The next lot might be just as bad, whereas we face that decision every 3 years. We are the governors and the kaitiaki of our water. The other concern I have is the lack of voice for our iwi partners. We heard quite clearly from Karamu Tākina their views on this, that they also have reservations. We obviously have another partnership with Ngāti Rangi Wewehi. Now, these people have trusted us. The relationship is with this council, not with somebody else that they've never met. What guarantee is that those agreements will be upheld? What guarantee is that their rights will be incorporated? What guarantee is that they will have a representation, a voice around the table to make sure that their generosity is not taken advantage of and exploited? So, to me, 2A, retaining our control as representatives and kaitiaki of our people is the best option going forward.
Thank you. We have had 3 speakers against, or we are operating under standing order, so we'll ask for any speakers who are in favour. We've got Councillor Kaifong, followed by Councillor Brown, and then Barker.
Thank you, Chair. Look, I'm supportive of 2B. At this stage, this first decision is simply the delivery mechanism, in-house or a CCO. We're saying it's still a local controlled, so I know people have talked about regional, losing control to regional. At the moment, this decision is just talking in-house or CCO, still local. So we're on that point at this stage. With this process, we've also got more time to investigate. So we've got a 2028 timeline up there. One of the things that we haven't had the opportunity to do with both ourselves and with other councils is to just look more deeply into what will our deposition look like, what will the price be, the delivery mechanisms, are there going to be those efficiencies or not? And we're still to make a future decision, but it seems like we're on the circuitous route to try and get back to what the other councils are talking about is we want to be in-house. So first decision here, is it in-house or is it a CCO? Second decision is, do we want to go multi-council, and that leaves a future council to still have that discussion, to still have that deeper dive into all of that information, to have those discussions with iwi, to also have those discussions with government. And if that still doesn't work, we still have a fallback position, which is we come back to an in-house business unit. So we are just following a process of working through all of the different steps. We're not locking in forever. this council to just that one option. But what we need to do is to allow the opportunity to just explore these things, take our time. The other thing we also need to do is to work in partnership, and I know I've heard councillors say we need to push back at government on this, but there's only so far we can go, and we've heard a very clear message from the government that we're not going to get any airtime. It's either airtime for us to talk, airtime for him to listen, or wallet. And I think that's a really important message, is that we need to work in partnership. We've said that we need to work in partnership with iwi. We also need to work in partnership with government. And they've given us a really clear direction in that letter that we've got from Minister Watts. There is the opportunity to also revisit this at a future time. So there is still that opportunity to still have those ongoing discussions with government. So therefore, that is why I'm happy to support 2B. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we will allow any given the significance of this, any councillors who do wish to speak. So we've now got Councillor Brown, Barker, and then Wang.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think Councillor Kaifong has summed it up very well. I haven't really got a lot to add, to be honest. I think this is about appeasing the Minister, unfortunately. They've got the power. I think we need to follow the process in the particular political cycle. Now is not the time to challenge them. But I have to say, wherever the water services end up, we have to do better. And the CCO doesn't pass my sniff test, but I'm happy to be proven wrong. So I think we just give the time to the powers and analyse risks and rewards, and then make a conscious decision later. So I'm happy to support 2B for now.
Thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Worship. I find this quite a challenging topic because, as Councillor Lee has alluded to, I was not in favour of the Three Waters model proposed by the last government. I found it to be a flawed approach, enforcing unreasonable structures on councils. This process has turned out to be a version that is not too dissimilar, as has been outlined. But I do feel that we don't have enough knowledge in general about the options that are available to us. That has been made quite clear by the other councillors as well. This option actually provides the time and the space for us to do the work, as has been mentioned by other councillors. It allows us to look at the CCO model against an in-house model and actually see whether the in-house model does stand up to scrutiny, which it probably will, because as Councillor Brown says, I don't know whether the CCO model stands the sniff test. We have put considerable resources into our Three Waters infrastructure as a council, and that's apparent by the level of investment in the 3 years that we've been on this council. So we, as a council, have done all we can to keep our infrastructure in a resilient and stable condition that delivers good services to our community. And so it's very challenging to actually be asked to amalgamate with councils who may not have done the same level of work that we have. So I just want to actually acknowledge our team and the infrastructure team for the work that they have done. And I just would also like to say that, there's a very clear message from the Minister. I think his words were, I expect all councils to be actively considering working with and supporting their neighbouring councils. There's been other messaging along the lines that Councillor Kaifong has mentioned with regards to airtime and the wallet. I don't think that we should be putting forward options that are likely to not be looked favourably upon by the Minister, and then we end up being forced to take an option that we don't like. And that is the last place I think we want to be as a council. I would like to take a more considered approach and take the time to do the due diligence to find out that if, as we are all leaning towards perhaps an in-house business model, to find that and demonstrate to the Minister that actually that's a really good option. And I think this allows us the space and the time to do that. So I will support 2B. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. Councillor Wang.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm not too sure what else I could add actually after the previous three speakers, but I agree with the points from Councillor Kaifong, Brown and Barker. around this option would give us the flexibility in time, but also in those talks, in those negotiations with the other councils, the potential other councils, or whether or not we do go it alone in exploring those options. It gives us the flexibility with the time so that we can do that work. As Councillor Barker has mentioned, for me, it's about, obviously we've been told, and it looks like that something will be imposed upon us, and that is whether or not we play a part in the talks, we play a part in the creation of it, or not, and it will be forced upon us anyway. So for me, it's about, we should be there, put our foot in from the start, and make sure that we play a part in the discussions and the creation of whatever it is, so that we can get something that best fits the needs of our district. And as Councillor Barker has mentioned, credit to our team for the significant amount of investment and work that has gone into our infrastructure network here in Rotorua. We have done a great job, but as Councillor Brown mentioned, we can still do better. Of course, we can still do better. And I look forward to having those discussions and see where we do end up, what would be the best option for us and potentially for the region as well. That's why I will be supporting option 2B. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go Councillor Kiriopa, and if there are any further speakers, please let me know. Councillor Kiriopa.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Barker, difficult decision. Mine is a little bit for different reasons. I don't actually have faith in the in-house water services as they currently stand. Yes, we get water to our homes and our toilets flush, but our water sources are not protected. The water sources that Councillor Patterson talks about that are so rich here in Rotorua are not protected in the way that they would be across all decision making if mana whenua weren't excluded from these decisions. I don't have faith in the in-house iwi engagement as it currently stands either. So my concern with an in-house business unit is that it will just be business as usual, and business as usual is not acceptable to mana whenua. The only light I see in this space currently are the conditions of the stormwater global consent, which mean that there need to be catchment plans that iwi need to be a part of. And when I look at, when I think about water services, the second option, it gives council an opportunity before July 2028 to actually engage with iwi. Whether that will happen genuinely or not, is another thing. And if it doesn't, if we're still left voiceless as Tarawa in these spaces, even though, there's a couple of iwi that actually own some of these puna now, they've had them returned, then I have to wonder if a CCO would give Tarawa an opportunity to work with other iwi who might have more of a voice in the catchment space, who might have more power, who might have better relationships with their councils to have a voice. So Tarawa haven't had an opportunity to talk about these things. And, one of the problems is we don't have the infrastructure or the resourcing to be able to have these types of conversations. It would really be good if council could support, Tarawa to have real conversations about what the pros and cons might be in the space, and also for Tarawa to be able to talk with the other iwi that are in these catchments to talk about how we might be able to work together in this space too. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. So I'm kind of, for those reasons, I support B at this stage in the hope that council might actually engage appropriately with mana whenua. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Waru.
Tēnā koe te marua o tira tātou katoa. te ahune ko hau te mea whakamutunga ki te kōrero, so I'll just be brief. Actually, I support the kōrero around the 2B option, particular what Lani's just mentioned, and I think that's the way to go. I was trying to have a little bit of a wordsmithing exercise in my mind while I was listening to everybody, but I think as we go through the flow chart, I think that might give us a little bit more comfort. And I know I probably should have asked the question at question time, but if you will indulge me, te manukura, just to our CEO, in your sort of mahi, have you seen these things from other councils, in particular these types of resolutions go through and be accepted? If I can ask the question, if that's all right.
Through you, Your Worship, yes, a range of councils are approaching it differently. It is, as has been mentioned, there isn't a directive of how to do it, so this is up to councils. But the essence of what a number of councils that we're talking to are considering this option of working together to the same time frame with the final decision with the council of the day as they prepare their long-term plan to either opt into that joint model, and I might say that joint model, there's a significant scope to craft it by being part of those discussions. So to answer your question directly, yes, other councils are also going down the similar path. I don't know what decisions they're going to make. We're the first one to make a decision. We've got Whakatane tomorrow, and we've got other councils in the next coming weeks.
Thank you, and Te Manukura, thank you for indulging me with that question. Just as we move on, I think in particular this Kawanatanga has a track record of if you don't do it, it will be done to you, from my point of view. So I think 2B, kau te tautoko, and let's move on to the next one. Kia ora.
Thank you very much. Well, that has been all the councillors who have had the chance to speak. And just before we do put this to the vote, as the mover, I'll just like to make some concluding comments. To make a good decision, we need to be well informed. We do not yet have enough information to guarantee to our community whether or not a council-controlled organisation or staying in-house would be better for us. And I do want to acknowledge that there could be significant financial benefits to borrow what we need to deliver critical infrastructure. That's a problem for all councils, so I'm not too surprised that this current government has been also supporting a direction towards larger council cooperation. I do want to mention that we are taking the community with us, so later on there is also 4.E that notes that the public will be progressively informed about the work of the Waters Working Group as they conduct their work over the next triennium. Three Waters was way different to this. Three Waters was when the last government actually forced us and said that it was going to be mandatory for us to go to massive mega entities. And our one would have been all the way to Taranaki, do you believe it? It was significantly different. I do want to mention, for those who don't know what we mean when we say CCO, it's a council-controlled organisation. And we have seen examples of council-controlled organisations that do really well. And we have one ourselves with tourism and economic development, where you ensure that you have experts in their fields being able to deliver that, and I think that would only be beneficial for our council too. I do want to acknowledge that I am grateful to this Minister for taking the time to visit us here in Rotorua. He's been a number of times for a number of different reasons, but he's also took the time to speak one-on-one with myself and the other Bay of Plenty mayors, so I do know that he cares and he is listening. And when we said to him, actually our preferred model is in-house, we need time to take our communities along the journey. Other councils in our region, such as Tauranga and Western Bay, their communities have been very aware of their need and also their financial constraints. And I want to emphasise that by working with others, there is the potential, if we need it in some time in the future, to be able to borrow more to deliver that critical infrastructure. Because while we are okay, and I want to acknowledge Kawerau as well, I'm not too surprised, their infrastructure is exceptional, and fortunately we have their previous Chief Executive, Russell, with us now, so we also have a great team here in Rotorua, but they are not needing to have much investment in the next 10 years. But we do know, as we've seen around New Zealand, that we are only one natural disaster away from needing to seek extra help. If we had another significant flood, if there was an earthquake, if there was a cyclone, these things happen, and I would be very concerned on our community being able to afford to not only renew and repair, but potentially completely replace. And while we are ahead, I don't want to fall behind and be one of the many councils across the country that are not even able to deliver the basics of clean drinking water or reticulated sewage. So I do want to finally just acknowledge our local iwi. Us as a council, I'm really proud of our leadership and our partnership with iwi and hapu. In the past, we have received an award for our joint consent process with Ngāti Rangi Wewehi, which was the Te Puna Pekehawa, otherwise known as Awaho. And recently also this council with Ngāti Tuaro, Ngāti Kiaro, when we secured our future vital water supply for the majority of our city, but also were able to return culturally significant land to their traditional guardians. So this council has shown leadership, and given that we will be looking, we are the larger council within the partners we're considering of Whakatane, Pōtiki and Kawerau, potentially. I think that we actually, as a council-controlled organisation, have a really exciting opportunity to be able to lead the way and also assist other communities, other iwi and hapu, to be able to deliver excellent services in an appropriate manner as we have here in Rotorua. So I'll just conclude with reminding everyone we should keep an open mind by supporting an in-house business unit until the 1st of July 2028. That's 3 years away. And it makes sense that in 2 years' time, when a future council does their long-term plan, then they can decide if it's appropriate to transition to a water services council-controlled organisation. So thank you very much, everyone, for your discussion. I will now put this to the vote. I do ask if you please raise your hand. So this is that the council resolves that water services be delivered for the duration of the plan via an in-house business unit until 1st of July 2028 and then transitioning to a water services council-controlled organisation. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any against? That is carried. Thank you. And so,
can we have that recorded, Your Worship, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
That is fine. And so that is point 2. We will now move number by number. So we will go to 3. Should 2B be adopted, the priority structure of the Water Services CCO will be either A, a multi-council, or B, a Rotorua Lakes Council only. I would like to suggest that we go down the direction of continuing to explore a multi-council. So to open up for discussion, I will move 3A, bearing in mind this will be in 3 years from now, but 2 years for the decision. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Kai Fong. And now we'll open up, we'll take any questions and discussion as well as we move through these. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship. As previously indicated, I'm not likely to be pursuing a multi-council CCO on the grounds that it's contrary to the purpose of local government and making democratic local decision making, and I'm not persuaded that there's going to be financial benefits from so doing. But I do want to pick up on what we've just decided to do when we're talking about council-controlled organisations. There's another misnomer. Council-controlled organisation will get to write a letter of expectation once a year. In the case of a multi-council, council-controlled organisation, we'll contribute with other councils to a single letter of expectation. That's not much control. I mean, if you're serious about if it was a business in-house unit, which we've obviously decided against, then we would have actual control. But no, it's a misnomer to call it a council-controlled organisation. I'm disappointed that basically we're now on a course to having water meters and water rates the basis for making the previous decision. Incentives were given to us. Airtime, we will miss out on airtime with the Minister. I recall when the previous government was also throwing money around, some people were calling that a bribe. I don't think that's a principled way to go about making a decision. So I shall obviously be sticking to the next best option, which is a RLC, council-controlled organisation.
Councillor Brown.
Sorry, a question, if I may, Your Worship. If we go down this track and we find that it doesn't meet expectations, how do we back out of it? That's still an option.
Through you, Your Worship, so if you follow the flowchart, the fallback option, which will be decided upon by the Council leading up to the next long-term plan, will either be activated or they will pursue what you've just decided on, which is a joint water services CCO with those councils. So that's a decision that will come along with the next long-term plan decision and the appropriate consultation with the public.
And if I can further add to that, because it's a very good question, perhaps also looking at the point 4, because if 3A is adopted, then a working group would be set up consisting of appointed elected members and appointed elected members of Kawerau, Whakatane and Opotiki, and also welcome Western Bay and Taupo Council, and then direct the Chief Executive to provide technical and financial advice to that working group and report back to Council on a quarterly basis. This is also where we note the public will be progressively informed, and there is a final report in 2027 that will come to Council for a final decision. So absolutely, it is not the final decision at all, and it is essentially making a decision that we will continue investigating and working on this with the opportunity to back out later. Now, sorry, are there Councillor Brown?
Apologies, Your Worship. Is we still questions or discussion? Apologies, sorry, because there's been a little bit.
I'm just open to all now. So
well, if you don't mind a discussion, sorry, I can't support a multi-council after my previous comments. I'm not going to repeat those, but can I just say, for everyone that the Minister's talked about efficiencies and synergies and, saving money left, right and centre, well, according to all the press reports I've seen, rates hikes and water meters, I don't see too much money in terms of savings so far. And I appreciate this is only at the discussion stage. Maybe the savings are still to come. We shall see. I have my doubts, but let's wait and see. For a multi, I look at, say, Tauranga and Western Bay, or similar councils around the country where the topography and geography is so close, it makes sense. So I'm not blind to the needs of reform. I just think that, unfortunately, this is far too fast, far too big a step, too many unknowns. We can't, even through a statement of intent, I don't think at the moment we can tell our iwi and hapu partners how we're bringing them on board, how we're going to address their concerns, apart from saying, well, everything just carries over. I don't know that that's going to be good enough, and I suspect that that could very well lead to some very tough conversations for the next council. For the multi one for me, again, because of Rotorua's isolation from both the east side and the west, I don't know that there's too many more efficiencies we could gain. Frankly, if we stay in as per, I can't see why we couldn't once, the current contract with Trilogy ever comes up, why we can't use that to expand and say to other councils, hey, here's an opportunity for us to work closer. So why we need the actual multi is beyond me, quite frankly. And just finally, I would urge my colleagues to think, you've already made your vote, that's fine. It will follow you. When the bills start trebling up and much longer, this will follow you. When farmers come to their particular meetings with their new water bills, this will follow you. Make no mistake. Not only at this election and the next, but also those that perhaps in the future look at other elections. this will follow you. So good luck with that. I'll be supporting the Rotorua only, so I will not be supporting the council, the multi-council one at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we do look forward to our community following us along on this journey, as we will be undertaking this in a transparent process, as is noted, with at least at a minimum quarterly updates as well on how that's progressing. We have Councillor Barker followed by Councillor Peterson, and sorry, I do just want to mention now, I've heard a number of times water metering, and Councillor Lee specifically did mention that we're going down the track of that. Just for our community, that is absolutely not the case. We are not talking about water metering right now. There is no plans for water metering. This is simply providing a direction and the plan that is required by September as directed by government. So, Councillor Barker, followed by Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. I see 3A as just part of the investigations that need to happen for us to understand which option is the best for our community, and whether that be a multi-council CCO or an in-house option, which I have a strong desire to see us look into fully, so that we understand what that means as well, because I think that's something that we would be, and our community would actually really like us to look into and have favoured in the feedback that we have received as well. And I would say to some of the comments, are there efficiencies and synergies actually there? Well, we'll find out, won't we? This is the whole point of this exercise, because you're right, there's not enough information. We do need to have some more conversations with our iwi and mana whenua, and the comment that we will wait and see what happens, to the costs and water meters and all the rest of it. Yes, we will wait and see, because we will have the ability, if we take this option, to actually pause, do some work and watch what happens with the other councils. And I suspect that if the government decides that water meters are something that they want us to do, that it won't matter what sort of model that we have. It will be imposed upon us if they choose to do so. So it doesn't matter which model you go with, there is a potential somewhere along the line of a future government perhaps going down that track. I can't say. As for the farmers, you're right, they got behind the protests on the Three Waters model. You're quite right, they weren't happy with that. They already are metered for their water, so they know what that's like. So investigating what this will actually mean to those communities and how it will play out is really important to see unfold and for them to understand. So I'm glad we have the chance to wait and see and do the due diligence. So I support 3A. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. My concerns have yet to be allayed. I also believe that option B is the one for us to maintain control, even though it might be small control. Basically, I feel bullied. I think Rotorua has been bullied, and most other councils have been bullied into this by central government. They forced fluoridation upon us. Now they're forcing this upon us with threats of, you won't have airtime. Frankly, that's not governance. That's being a bully. It's almost like when you were young, going to school, and in the class, a couple of kids were acting up and misbehaving. So what did the teacher do? Make the whole class stay back at morning tea time, at morning playtime. So you all had to stay back because of the misbehaviour of two kids. Now that's the same approach. They are saying that the rest of the country has not been living up to their water services commitments. We have. We've been doing an excellent job in delivering our Three Waters. We're way better than most of the rest of the country, yet they're punishing us too because of the poor performance of others. That's not on. When are we ever going to stand up and say, we're actually doing a pretty good job for Rotorua? Go and pick up those people who are not and make them comply. Leave us alone. You've got bigger fish to fry than worrying about what Rotorua is doing, because we're already doing it. Go and deal with those others who are not. So I'll be supporting 2B. 3.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. There appears to be no further comments. Look, I do want to acknowledge there is quite passionate views on this, and of course there is the hangover from the previous three waters. Fortunately, we do have the opportunity to be able to undertake some work in a way that would be most appropriate for our community with the time that we are suggesting. Also just want to mention that we can't take a guess at what's best without having evidence to back that, because how do we know? How do we know that it is going to be terrible? How do we know that it is going to be great? We actually just need to take the time, see what other councils may be interested. There may be none. Okay, then we move on with our in-house model as the backup option. But if other councils do want to come on board with us, I certainly welcome the opportunity to be able to determine what could the benefits be for our communities in a way that also doesn't have any negative unintended consequences, because I do know there are still much concerns in our community because we haven't had the opportunity to investigate and also communicate and consult with them. So there appears to be no further discussion on this, so I will put that to the vote, that the priority structure for the Water Services CCO be a multi-council. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any against? Thank you. Yep, we'll record that. And so now, because 3A has been adopted, we now move to 4. And so we will take all of these in one, and I will just read them out for your understanding. So Council resolves A, to set up a working group, Waters Working Group, consisting of appointed elected members of Rotorua Lakes Council to engage with elected members of Kawero, Whakatane and the Pōtiki District Councils over the timeframe from October 2025, following the election, to February 2027, with the purpose of evaluating and delivering a working model of a multi-council water services council-controlled organisation. B, to welcome Western Bay of Plenty Council, Taupo District Council and other interested councils to also join the discussions. So the purpose of that is to remain open who those who may wish to. Do note though that Western Bay and Tauranga are going together and Taupo District is going towards Waikato, but the opportunity could be available. And also C, to direct the Chief Executive to provide technical and financial advice to the Waters Working Group and to report back to Council on a quarterly basis. And also D, that upon the conclusion of the Waters Working Group final report in 2027, Council will make a final decision on whether to participate in the multi-council Water Services CCO. To note that the public will be progressively informed about the work of the Waters Working Group as they conduct their work over the next triennium. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? That's moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Kaifong, and open once again for any questions or discussion on this.
A question, Your Worship, if I may. Picking up on Councillor Kiriopa's point around mana whenua engagement, how do we anticipate that that may be included in this process?
Through you, Your Worship, Councillor Brown, that was a topic that's come up a number of times with the CEs who are working on this. Should all of the councils go down this path and agree to set up a steering group, a working group, we'll be looking to work with, each council will respectively work with their iwi leadership to work out how they want to be involved. We have got a little bit of time between when these resolutions pass and the new council is inducted in October, November this year, and I'll be looking to bring to that council some options of how to engage mana whenua with that process.
Councillor Waru.
Tēnā koe te manukura. Question for you, through you, Madam Chair. Te manukura. Question for you, CEO Andrew. Just the, I don't see really where central government sort of fits into this particular space. I know it goes without saying, but is it worth putting something in on, or is that just assumed that we will be, DIA and all that seem to be calling the shots, and the minister is there, or will that be set up in terms of reference or something of this particular group?
Councillor, if you look, I believe it's sections, recommendation 6, the Water Services Delivery Plan will be presented back to Council for approval prior to submission to the Department of Internal Affairs. So that's the point through which we would engage central government. They would look at our plan, they would approve it or give us comments, and that's our contact point with the Minister and the Secretary of the Interior at DIA.
Okay, oh, that's at that point. What I'm saying is, wouldn't it be prudent to have some kind of, I don't know, mechanism or something to actually have them on board right from the start to guide, seeing as there's nothing solid right now was to follow.
Thank you, through your worship. Councillor, to assure you, I'm in weekly contact with DIA. I'm intending to speak to them after this decision and get some further feedback and advice so that we've got plenty of interactions to make sure that there are no surprises coming out of our submission to the Water Services Delivery Plan. After that, it's not yet clear what the enforcement mechanisms will be from the DIA. We've understood what they are from Tamatarawa and the Commerce Commission about their regulatory powers, and they've presented to this council before to talk about their powers to set minimum prices, maximum prices, water standards, etc. So that will continue. That is clear. What I'm hearing from you is your question is around what informal discussions we're going to have with them to make sure that the Water Services Delivery Plan isn't a surprise to them or their feedback isn't a surprise to us. So I can assure you that's happening on a weekly basis.
Okay, kia ora, away we go now.
Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship. Gosh, this is unpalatable. Thank you, Minister, for putting lipstick on this pig of three waters. I will be abstaining from this. I have no doubt that we've been set on a course towards water meters and water rates. There is no alternative that's before us for what to do now that the decision has been made to pursue a multi-council. So it follows from that decision, that arguably poor decision, that what's here in option 4 is what should happen next. But I find it difficult within myself to endorse it, so I'll just abstain. Thank you.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I'm just thinking what my opening sentence will be, so I don't get ruled out of order. Oh, you don't want it too good? Not yet. Unlike Councillor Lee, although I take on board what he said, I accept the decision's been made by my colleagues. As I say, the decision will follow you, and not for some time to come. So taking that on board, I think this is the best probably way that we can allow the CE and Her Worship to move this, or maybe a next mayor, to move this forward and as well, supported as we can make it. So for those reasons, even though I'm very unhappy about how the votes went this morning, I'll be supporting this to try and make as positive an outcome out of this before the rises and rates hikes begin. So I'll be supporting.
Thank you. I haven't had anyone else signal they wish to speak to this, so I will now put this to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? That is carried, and we do note the abstention, yeah, the one abstention. So we will finish off with point 5 and point 6, and then we'll take a morning break. So this is what was mentioned earlier regarding the fallback option. So because we do need to signal, unfortunately, with the time frame of September, so should a future council decision be to not join the multi-council water service CCO, and what I'd like to propose is the fallback option is an in-house business unit. Yeah, so I will move that. That's seconded by Councillor O'Brien. You can take that. And so, we'll open that up for any questions or discussion. I think it's fairly straightforward. That's consistent with some of the discussion we've had now and previously as well. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for going with 5B, the fallback option of an in-house business unit. As Councillor Kai Fong's insightful question revealed earlier this morning, we would be able to potentially evolve from this option to a CCO if a future council deemed that to be sensible. But we won't have the option to go the other way if we were to go with 5A. So this is the option that would keep all the options on the table for a future council to consider, and eminently sensible to do so, in my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Kai Fong.
Thank you, Chair. I think this is the final decision which just keeps all of these options open, and so I know there's been a little bit of scaremongering from councillors this morning about costs and water meters and things like this, but what we're doing, as you said, is just giving the opportunity to do all the due diligence, look at all the opportunities, do all the pros and cons, and if need be, we can still come back to where we first started. So it may be that we do go around in a circle, but we've actually taken the time to make the decision in the right way by doing all of the steps that we need to. So I'm happy to support this option.
Thank you. Well, that has been moved and seconded, so I'll put that to the vote. If you could please raise your hand. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. And just finally, point 6, Council notes that the draft Water Services Delivery Plan will be presented to Council for approval in July, prior to submission to the Department of Internal Affairs by 3rd of September 2025. And that is this July, just by the way. That's moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Kai Fong. Any discussion required on this? No, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? Thank you, that is carried. We will now take our
Madam Chair?
morning... Yes?
Sorry, just before we move on, if you would allow me a question. I note in the feedback from the community there were several submissions from individuals and also from community associations regarding the Roto Ehu scheme. I just wondered if either the CE or Stavros might just be able to address that where it's at, just for that community, since there was such amount of feedback on it.
Yeah, thank you very much. What we might do is I think that is good for all councillors to receive an update, is we might just take that as an action point and then ask that an update on it be circulated by email to the councillors, and then if required it can come up at discussion at perhaps a future Infrastructure and Environment Committee meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for raising that. So we will take a short break now of 15 minutes, so we will return at 11:18. But before we do, I also just want to acknowledge that we do have Bapleney Regional Councillor Kevin Winters here with us as well. So thank you very much for taking the time to be here in this meeting. Okay, we will take a break and see you at 11:18. Actually, just make that 11:20. We'll reconvene. We are going to come back to our staff reports, and we are now up to the draft statement of proposal Inner City Safety Bylaw and Policy Review. This is page 23 on your agenda, and we welcome John Paul and also Alexandra. And can I please have a mover and a seconder to receive this report? That's moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Patterson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. We'll hand over to JP and Alexandra to overview the presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just briefly before I hand over to Alex to take us through a very brief presentation. Obviously, we've talked to you about some minor changes that we think would be of significant value in a number of our bylaws, just to help with community safety, and also just to help us be in a position where we take action to recover costs. So that really relates to the collection and return of shopping trolleys. Some wording around just expanding some words we currently have around window washers to include the sort of the nuisance and safety around begging, and also some works that we may need to recover where a business's veranda is a risk or is a safety concern and overhangs our public sidewalk. So just those areas around being able to take action and recover costs. So I'll just briefly now hand over to Alex just to guide us through the components.
Thanks, JP. Hi, councillors. So the objectives of today, we would like you to adopt the statement of proposal on the Inner City Safety Bylaw and Policy Review, and agree to a public consultation running from next week Tuesday to the 1st of August, so that'll be 1 month. So there are 3 bylaws, 1 policy that are proposed to be amended in this consultation. So that's the solid waste bylaw, traffic bylaw, general bylaw, and the dangerous, affected and unsanitary buildings policy. So I'll call that the day policy from now on, just for ease. So we'll start with the solid waste bylaw. So this is all about abandoned trolleys. So essentially this clause is to try and solve the persistent problem of abandoned trolleys around the council, not the council, around the district. So essentially the clause will obligate retailers to prevent their trolleys becoming waste. What this means in practice, council will collect trolleys, so they'll do a sweep a couple of times a week. They will then store the trolleys in the nursery, so on Queen's Drive. Retailers will be notified and they will have 24 hours to pick up their trolley free of charge. If they miss this deadline, then a kind of storage fee, a weekly storage fee, is incurred, so that's $75. After 1 month, if the retailer hasn't picked up their trolleys, or if 15 trolleys are amassed for a single retailer, then the Works Department will return the trolleys to that retailer at a cost. So I think if there's 1 to 5 trolleys, that's $150. I think 6 to 10, $300, and 11 plus $450. There will also be other requirements on the retailers to erect signage, which essentially prohibits the removal of trolleys from their premise, and to provide contact details to assist if any trolleys have been found by members of the public. And then the opportunity was taken to make a few other amendments to the bylaw, just to a few minor clarifications and the additional clause of a donation collection point, but relatively minor. I should say as well, we've had some pre-engagement with retailers on this already, and they were very supportive of the idea. They thought it made sense that council collect it, they have the opportunity to pick it up. So that's where we are on this issue. I can pause there for questions, or I can take them at the end.
Thank you. Why don't we pause on each of the separate policies? Thank you. We'll open up for questions. Councillor Brown, followed by Lee.
Your Worship. Alex, I wonder if you could expand on the charging regime that you're suggesting here, and I'm interested to know specifically why we would allow the pick-up after within 24 hours is free of charge. Why wouldn't we look to charge them for that service?
So to add it to the waste bylaw, we have to give the opportunity for it to become waste, if that makes sense. So the 24-hour period is really, if the retailers don't pick it up within 24 hours, so then essentially it is waste. So that's kind of why we have to have the break. I should say that this is modelled off Auckland's bylaw as well, so this is kind of how they have done it and tested it as well.
Sorry, just in the expansion, will the fees that we're looking to charge after the 24 hours cover the services that we're looking to provide? Is it cost neutral or are we subsidising? How does that look?
Councillor, that's a good question. We've had to make some estimates at this stage, and so it's potentially it will cost us something if a supermarket or a retailer has their own service, so they minimise their what we may be forced to collect, and if they act within 24 hours, in effect we've borne the cost of picking up the odd stray trolley and hold it. So we've actually incentivised it that they quickly get to, they have their own service and they quickly get to us to recover their trolleys without cost. So at this stage we're anticipating there would be a level of ratepayer cost to us for the service. Obviously the supermarkets were quite positive about it not being seen as being overly punitive, and that's why they were quite supportive of those, particularly those who had a service in place. But again, one of the things we were also anticipating is whether we needed to keep the fees under review. We've certainly had some internal debate about whether the weekly charge was high enough to actually incentivise them to act quickly, and B, try to cover some of the costs that we'll be incurring.
Sorry, just so picking up on that, are these fees under review? When do we review them, when we know what it's costing?
I think outside of this agenda, I had the question asked to me about the fees and the recovery, and I suggested that one of the options from this would be that we would, as part of the statement of proposal, we'll see what the feedback is from the community before you make a final decision on the fee structure. And the other piece, I think, from what Alex had drafted into the SOP was an intention that we would keep the fees under review. So if we start clearly incurring a significant cost or not being able to recover properly, we could change the fees.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. I am delighted that we are tackling the trolley problem, and you've presented one option, which is excellent and well worth considering. Isn't there also the possibility, isn't there councils in Auckland who have established a bylaw that would require supermarkets or trolley owners to have the coin-operated kind of mechanism that would tend to encourage the return of trolleys?
So, as I understand, Auckland's bylaw is similar to what we propose. We've simplified it slightly. So there is no requirement in their bylaw to have a coin-operated trolley. I mean, we have discussed this internally when we were thinking of ideas of what to do. We also discussed the idea of geofencing. So essentially, if the trolley is pushed outside the premise, then it locks. From the research that I've done, I haven't seen of any kind of widespread usage of coin-operated trolleys or geofencing, if any at all.
In New Zealand?
Or New Zealand.
Yes, because it's quite well established in Australia.
Yes, and in Europe as well.
Right,
yeah.
Right. So are you saying that, well, what are you saying? The Auckland bylaw, I thought, am I mistaken that it doesn't refer to coin-operated coins, but they're doing it anyway at the supermarkets? Is that how they're implementing it?
So it may be that the supermarket is implementing it separate to the bylaw. The bylaw, I know I've spoken to Auckland Council recently, so I know that they're reviewing their bylaw. Their bylaw is very similar to what we have and what we're proposing. They also have a retailer accord, which they've had for a number of years, which we've tried similar things in the past, but that hasn't worked out. So I think in terms of the coin-operated trolley, we felt like this was probably going to be the most cost-effective, probably least disruptive policy option.
And we'll just get the Chief Executive to respond as well.
Yeah, Councillor Leaf, I think the question you're asking is there anything in our bylaw that would prevent a supermarket from doing that? The answer is no. Is there anything in anyone else's bylaws that prescribe that a supermarket would do that? The answer is no. So the bylaws just say what they need to achieve, and the supermarkets make their decisions, or vendors make their decisions on what's their most effective way to achieve that outcome. In some cases, they've chosen to use the coin system, and in other cases, they might make a different choice, but the bylaw leaves it open to them how they do that.
Yes, thank you, Andrew. Following on from that explanation, which has given us some clarity, I guess my real question was, would a coin-operated option be a reasonably practicable option that we should be consulting on?
So Councillor, we don't stipulate the solutions. So we wouldn't, there's nothing in our bylaw that would prevent a vendor from implementing that system, but equally we don't see it as our role to stipulate that's how they must do it.
If it is helpful, I have, on a community safety matter, spoken with most of the large grocery chain stores in Rotorua. They are aware of different options that they have, including trolleys that lock automatically once they reach a certain distance from the store, but that will certainly be a matter for them to be able to investigate, and I am aware that they are looking at that themselves too.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll go Councillor Waru, then Kai Fong.
Tēnā koe te manukura, tēnā kōrua. Just a question around, you mentioned it's based on, this particular thing is based on the Auckland bylaw. How effective has it been in Auckland?
So we've spoken to Auckland and we know that they're reviewing the bylaw. We believe that the accord that they had with the retailers didn't work out so well. We're not entirely sure how many... so essentially, if the retailer was a member of the accord, so the kind of agreement with the retailers, then the bylaw wouldn't apply. So in terms of numbers, I can't quite give you that right now, but I know it's under review, and Christchurch is also proposing to implement a similar solution.
Just adding on to Alex's explanation, I think as we've said, we've seen it legally able to be put in a bylaw, and the option is there to how to manage it. I think the difference from us is that we've also reflected on what that means for us locally in our unique set of circumstances, and the potential for us to collect and hold and transfer. So, and then when we discussed this with the various supermarkets who have participated in a couple of pieces of work we've done prior. You remember we did a pilot on a collection service that we undertook. We also did a bunch of analysis about what trolleys were ending up where and whose. I think we've modified it slightly from the Auckland model to be as effective as I think we can get it for our own local circumstances, and tested it initially with those supermarkets and retailers who joined us in that pre-engagement, but no doubt we'll get some more comments during the submission process.
Thank you, and I just have another question too around what's the cycle of review for fees and others?
So in terms of the fees, we don't have a set cycle, so we've kept them under review. So in the statement of proposal, we clearly say that they're subject to change, and that they'll be monitored to make sure that we're covering our costs, essentially. So probably in 6 months' time, maybe a year's time, we will be in contact with the Works Department and see how the fees are progressing.
Thank you. I imagine you fellows have had your group has had the debate, and well, for me, there's I'm a little bit concerned that some of our larger retailers will end up using this as a subsidised service to get their trolleys back. Is that in the thinking?
Councillor, I think that's a risk. But actually at the moment they've got themselves they still have to come and collect them, otherwise incur us waiting a month before we return them, and if there's a significant number, if they've just defaulted to us, it potentially may cost them more. I think the critical piece is we need to understand that, so those first few months of operation, understanding the costs and the overall numbers gives us the chance to review that and have a second bite at the pricing. The main concern we've had in the past is those who do not have a service, and really making sure that the smaller operators who may not have any kind of service and who have trolleys that may appear occasionally are collected and returned at a reasonable cost, not a punitive cost.
And my last question is about where would they be stored?
So they'll be stored in the nursery on Queen's Drive, so somewhere central.
Okay, kia ora.
Thank you, and we'll take a final question. A question from Councillor Kaifong, Patterson, and then O'Brien, and then we'll move on.
Okay, Alex, I just wanted clarification about the 24 hours because that looks different to what's in the document. So, if a member of the public reports a trolley is on Fenton Street, they've got 24 hours to go and pick it up. If they don't pick it up, then council will pick it up, and then you're saying they've got another 24 hours before they incur a fee?
So we discussed this with the retailers because there is some complexity if a member of the public reports a trolley because council separately might have already picked that trolley up. So there are some risks there. If council picks up a trolley, they won't necessarily know that trolley's already been reported to the retailer. So on that basis, the 24-hour period would start.
Just for clear transparency too, we'll be setting up a system so that if we have recovered a trolley from Street X and it's now sitting at the location that's central for us to hold them, we will then send them an email saying, hey, we've got 1, 2, 3 trolleys that we picked up from X Street. So they, if they've missed it, they're at least aware of that we've got trolleys to pick up.
I think there's the two documents don't marry together because you've got one where you've got 24 hours and then just not sure if that makes sense in the documents, but anyway. And then the second question was just around the fees. So we've said that that's not going to be enough to actually cover all our costs. I think that's too low. The second thing is that, so they're going to, it says in the summary of proposal that it's $75 a week, whether it's one or more trolleys, but then below you're going, it's a one-off weekly fee of $150, $300, $450. And so if we've had them for a month, why would you not refer to monthly fees? I'm just not quite following the sequence of how we are going to charge. So they get a pickup fee and then they need a storage fee, and if we're going to return them, they should have a return fee. So I'm not sure that we've covered all of the costs in the what's proposed there. I just can't quite follow the...
We can look at the statement of proposal to make sure that the fees are clearly outlined. So essentially, it's a weekly fee for $75 if we pick up a trolley or more, and it's not picked up within 24 hours, then a weekly fee of $75 is incurred. So that accrues after a month. If they are still not picked up, then there is delivery fees, which are outlined in the SOP.
Just to be clear, so if someone loses 15 trolleys or 15 plus trolleys on day one, and we've recovered them, we've given them the 24 hours notice, they haven't done anything, and those trolleys sit for 4 weeks, the month, so they accrue a cost then of $75 per week for those 15 trolleys accruing in our holding, plus then at the end of that month we would do 2 or 3 deliveries back to them of those 15 trolleys, incurring a fee of $450 additional. So you're now up to 75 times 4 plus $450.
So I'm still not following because the document says the fee of $75 is the maximum amount that they can be charged for 1 week, and then you've got a delivery fee. So I'm not sure the document's really clear in how the charging regime would come into effect. I think it needs to be much clearer and slightly punitive as well, because the whole purpose of this is to encourage retailers to pick the trolleys up themselves from the street so that we're not actually having to do it. And I don't think ratepayers should be subsidising supermarkets for pick-up and delivery if they see this as a service that they can utilise by
So, Councillor, we just have to be careful. LGA does not allow us to be punitive. This is not a fine.
Well,
so
it
this
should
is
at least cover the costs then.
Yeah, so that's
all
where
of
we
the
can
costs.
go. So again, it would be potentially our weekly holding costs, because we know what our delivery cost would be, which is approximately $150 for that. So, and if you're concerned about just our editorial, if we're comfortable at the end of this resolution of just saying and editorially confirm or use an example within the document, just to clarify, we're just happy to do that. As I say, we've had to do a thumb suck on making sure we're not moving into a punitive and it's cost recovery, and the intention was that's why we needed to keep it on a recovery. But if you think the charge should be higher for the weekly store as a deterrent, I think that's maybe something we should look at straight away.
Okay, thank you. I would be supportive of increasing that charge then.
Thank you. We have a number of questions. Patterson, O'Brien, Kiriopa, and then Waru.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just an outside the square question. Effectively, when someone walks off a supermarket lot with a trolley, that's stealing. That is, they are stealing that trolley. Is that not correct?
No, that's not correct. It's if you took it to possess it, but one of the things we're finding with the explanations and we've had this confirmed from the police is that if you're using it to say, hey, I'm transporting it here, but I intend to return it, it gets into a grey zone, and so they do not consider it to be a stolen item at that point.
However, if they're found in possession of it at their house, then that is a stolen item.
That's correct, but we're not going onto anyone's property.
What about parks?
Parks is just an abandoned trolley.
But if they've got it next to their tent or their car?
We'd have to talk to the police about that, Councillor.
So that the point I'm trying to get at is abandoned trolleys. We can't add the word stolen in there? Because I'm concerned that we might, some clever cookie lawyer might turn around and say, they're going around and picking them up and putting them in their storage unit down at the nursery. So technically, aren't they stealing it as well?
Councillor, that's why we looked to the legal requirements around the bylaw. And that's why it's under the bylaw that we have currently cited. So the bylaw will protect us. Thank you.
Just to add as well, in the bylaw, there is a sort of clause that says unless the trolley has been removed from the premise with the retailer's permission. So under this kind of proposal, the retailers will be engaged and they will be aware that we're taking the trolleys. So in effect, we should have their permission.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Thank you, JP and Alex. My first question, could you please advise, either of you please, if one of the trolleys belongs to a premises that runs an off-licence or has any connection to a liquor licence, there's always a compunction to be aware of your environment. So if I have an off-licence, I can't let graffiti sit there forever. I have to be aware of the impact that has on the local area. If I'm allowing and not doing anything about trolleys, i.e. a supermarket, impacting the visual impact on this town, would you support putting that forward to the DLC as, sorry, if not an infraction, it's a minor one, but if there was a process of long term of inaction, do you think that that's something, I'm just trying to see where the difference is between if I don't look after my shop, someone could lay a complaint, and we've used that previously about cleaning up graffiti. Could we also look at, say, well, contribute to the wider impact?
I think that's something that we can discuss with the DLC. So I know part of the liquor licensing process, so renewals as well as new licences, amenity and good order is a part of that, like you say, removing graffiti. So this is something that we can potentially pose to the DLC or report numbers back to the DLC and go through that by that mechanism. The only, I suppose, potential issue is that would only come during the renewals process, which is every 3 years. So if we were going to put it to one, add it to one person's licence. That might not occur for their neighbour for the next 3 years. So that's just something that we can certainly explore.
So sorry, was that yes, you do support it, or you need to do more work on it, or you need to think about where that puts you, or?
We can raise it with the DLC if the councillors wish us to.
Okay, all right, thank you. Are you able to advise what's the current cost of us currently picking up the trolleys? I seem to recall a figure of 5,000, but that was some time ago.
That's correct. So we were at that point doing a more significant level of service in as a trial than what we anticipate within this. So I think that was 5,000 for about 3 months. So I think we're now looking in the order of something like 2 collections per week. So we're talking about 300 to 400 per week.
Okay, thank you. And my final question, if I may, Your Worship, and I think, and I could be wrong on this because I have recently celebrated the 30th anniversary of my 20th birthday, so the numbers are adding up. I do recall perhaps Councillor Brown contacting or being asked to contact some of the trolley facilities. Could I just ask both himself or to our staff colleagues here, why are supermarkets, or sorry, why across the board are the trolley owners not just taking action on this and sorting it? Is it they're not enough action? Is it, what's the problem? Because, sorry, this has been going on since I think we first came in, and nothing seems to have improved, so.
I think I think the supermarkets generally have their own arrangements. So the supermarkets, when we keep talking about supermarkets, it's supermarkets and certain retail establishments. So actually the supermarkets are generally reasonably effective. So there's even within that, there's different levels of effectiveness. But actually some of the more challenging ones are other premises. Now, if you think about sort of the number of premises in town that potentially have trolleys, you've mentioned some off licences, but there's places that sell sausages. There's a few other retail businesses, particularly in Central Mall and Trade Central, and a number of other sort of ones of scale where they also provide trolleys. So it's not across the board consistency even among supermarkets, and then we have a number of outliers with small numbers of trolleys coming from other premises.
Thank you for that. Sorry, I suppose what I'm trying to pinpoint is why are they not just taking this on board and doing it themselves? Is it cost? Because they're certainly not going to win under this, so I just don't know what's the...
I think there's a scale issue for some of the smaller operators, so that's piece number one, that they may not be large enough to see their 1 or 2, 3, 4 trolleys a month that are disappearing being justifiably requiring a service. Generally the supermarkets and the larger ones which are in more prominent locations generally are acutely aware of the cost of their trolleys versus how many they lose off their site. So they generally run quite effective services.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'm going to hold it there. Thank you, Your Worship. I would just say I do support the idea of a new bylaw, and as Councillor Kaifong said, at least make it where we're at least cost neutral to us, to ratepayers.
I just probably give the answer straight back. It was a conversation we had that the weekly charge originally was identified by the team as where they thought it would be covering the costs at $150 per week, not $75 per week. So if that's a guide for you around what the cost should be per week, that's what the team had suggested originally. We were just really concerned about making sure we didn't skew behaviour or appear to be too punitive up front and wait for a review. So if councillors want to move, that's probably the place to move to.
Thank you, JP. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. And I do note that this will all go out for public consultation, proposing to commence on the 1st of July as well. So we will hear back and make final decisions. Go Councillor Kirioka and then Waru.
Well, thank you. When we're talking about recovering costs, you mentioned delivery and storage. And I just wonder, would the increase to 150, would that cover also staff time? Because I think that's one of the concerns is ratepayers paying for staff time who could be actually doing other things that they're meant to be doing rather than collecting trolleys.
Yes, so the Parks, I can't remember exactly the team's name, but the Works Department have been fully involved in the discussion and the costs and the fees proposed cover their time as well.
Thank you. And final question from Waru.
Thank you for your indulgence. Te Manukura. I should have asked it before, but it only came to my mind as I was listening to the kōrero. The costs was $75 a week. Say one group has one trolley, another has 20. Is it still $75 per group or organisation?
Under the proposals, yes. So it's just one fee, one flat fee. We had many discussions on whether it should be on a per trolley basis or whether it should be incremental. But we decided a flat fee was probably going to be the most, probably the simplest solution at this stage.
Also, there are some clever people, I'll say, that actually remove parts of the trolley. So you can't tell where they came from. How are we going to address that?
That's been a question that has been raised, that the handles or the distinguishing features that have been, the advertising that's been put on trolleys, generally the owners know what their trolleys are. And I think what we got back from the Works Department from the trial, they got familiar with whose trolleys were whom's, and so there's two options: is they can identify preliminary and advise those particular retailers, hey, we think we've got one of your trolleys. Again, if they show up and go, no, that's not mine, that's mine, we'll try and just work through that kind of process. But generally, there is a familiarity between different owners' trolleys.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have 3 bylaws and 1 policy to get through, so we'll carry on now to the next one.
Thank you. So the other bylaw that we'd like to talk about today is the traffic bylaw. So we're proposing to expand the scope of an existing window washing bylaw, which prohibits unsafe and intimidating window washing, to general nuisance behaviours. So that's behaviours that would pose a public safety risk or are intimidating in their nature. So this could include the window washing, as I've just mentioned, also begging in high traffic areas or where the footpath intersects a road, as well as the unsafe use of scooters on the footpath.
Any questions on this one? Councillor Wang, followed by Brown and then Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. Very supportive of the direction of this. However, I just have a question around, in the past, obviously, we've seen other councils try to implement something like this, or even something more stringent, and they've had an issue with the human rights aspect as well. I'm just wondering what work you've done to address that.
So we've had legal counsel on this, so we have legal advice, and the clause that we are proposing to put into the traffic bylaw complies with all of human rights, doesn't infringe on Bill of Rights and freedom of expression.
Thank you for checking that. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Worship. Just a random question from me. Is this where we would deal with freedom camping in this bylaw if we chose to, or is that parking or something else? We've had conversations of feedback during our triennium. We haven't dealt with it.
So freedom camping, as I understand, is in the general bylaw, so it's kind of has its own separate clause, separate to this.
So are we thinking about doing that in this process, or is that something we haven't put on the agenda?
That's the first time, Council. We believe we understand. So the general bylaw takes care of the roading corridors and areas that aren't covered by a reserve management plan. Generally, our reserve management plans also prohibit camping on reserves. So I'm not sure then where the freedom camping issue is you're concerned about.
Well, we had a submission, if I may, Your Worship. We had a submission from a camp, one of the camps, Hannah's Bay, Holden's Bay, highlighting some of the downside of the current policy and the effects of that and not hosting these people properly, and we're giving up potential revenue. But if it's not in this, that's fine. I just want to know whether that will be picked up at some point.
Council, it's not in here. My understanding, if we're in Hannah's Bay, we're in reserve management plan. Oh, Hamarana. Ah, okay. Okay.
Sorry, so not in this series? Okay.
Councillor Peterson, followed by Waru.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your report. You mentioned, Alex, that you've been looking at Auckland's bylaws. So recently an article was released about an MOU that's been signed between Auckland Council and the police, and they listed a section of bylaws in there, and one of them stood out to me. It's called the Public Safety and Nuisance Bylaw. Have you looked into that?
So I can't remember the bylaw off by heart, but I'm sure I would have had a look at it. Hamilton Council also has a similar bylaw. I think, honestly, due to time, we felt like amending this bylaw would achieve similar outcomes, but that is something that we can look to do in the future and develop a new bylaw specifically for public safety and nuisance.
The reason I ask that is a number of things that we're trying to deal with by doing this are actually encapsulated in that bylaw, including this and the previous one that we've just covered. For example, Mr. Gaston, you mentioned that we can't be punitive. According to this, it says, referencing Council's powers to enforce this bylaw, including powers to take property and penalties up to $20,000. So that seems to infer that they can fine people.
Correct. If you create an infringement under a bylaw, where we've got someone's goods which we've collected on their behalf, again, they're not fly tipping. You know what I mean? They're not creating an infringement. They're not infringing. The supermarkets are not infringing. So our cost recovery is about they're not the infringer.
Right. They're the victim almost.
Yeah. So we're not fining them.
No, fair enough. So getting back to this one, there is a clause in it, clause C, and they identify what is a council-controlled, I guess you could say, area that the bylaw applies to, and it talks about parks, reserves, etc. Then it says roads, footpaths, access ways, grass verges, berms, and any part of a council-controlled public place. So in this particular part, it says a person must not use a public place to willfully obstruct, disturb, interfere with, alarm, distress, intimidate, or harm any other person in their use or enjoyment of that space. So that could quite easily infer doorways to shops on our streets. It could also infer entranceways to car parks on our streets, obviously not state highways. That kind of seems quite black and white and easy to enforce.
That's our wording in our general bylaw. So that is our wording in our general bylaw. Can I just make a distinction between the doorways? Doorways generally fall into, you'll see it across a lot of our streets. There's the corridor which belongs to the Rotorua Lakes Council, and generally there's an alcove which is the legal boundary that goes into a property. So where I think the issue you're raising is people in doorways, that's gone on to private property. So the obstruction of our walkways is how we've undertaken some recent work with the police, where they were creating a proper obstruction on our footpath, and that's under our general bylaw. I suspect what you're reading is Auckland has broken up their general bylaw into specific pieces. So that nuisance, so that clause, and as say, your wording is almost identical to what exists in our general bylaw.
Okay, so you're saying that we actually have the tools to enforce what we're doing now, and that would include window washers, etc., because that is a road which we control.
So we have some powers, so we have the window washing clause. So the clause specifically for here is more generic, more along the lines of what you've said, that Auckland has. So the general bylaw does touch on a lot of the themes, like obstruction and disturbing the peace, that sort of thing. So this clause is broader than what we have currently, and more in line with what you've exactly said.
Sorry, one final question on this subject. So technically, what Auckland is saying here is that they have the ability to fine people for infringing and breaking those rules. if we adopt this, can we do that? Because quite often the police are busy and they've got other things to worry about than someone begging in front of a supermarket driveway. If we were to enforce that, do we have the power to do that?
Yes, we have the powers, the exact same powers to do that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Waru.
Tēnā koe te manukura, kei te pai, my question has been answered.
Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Worship, and through the Chair. Thank you both again. Could I just ask, JP, since it's a traffic bylaw, one of the things that at least 2 or 3 times a year I'm asked about behaviour around bus traffic. Is there any possibility of us using this bylaw in this particular to give right of way to buses, particularly school buses? I know you probably can't say school buses, but buses in general, because some of the behaviour around our bus stops, etc., is terrifying, I'll be honest.
I suppose, Councillor, and there's been a couple of issues raised here, is we've moved reasonably quickly to try and put together an SOP with the intention of trying to see it through before the conclusion of your term. You surfacing additional changes, I would say we can't bring into the SOP now. We would have to go away, consider the legal ramification, look at what others are doing, if there's availability for that, and it would be a separate change process that we would have to come back to. I suppose one of the things that maybe we just need to make sure we're doing is we've got a limited scope and time frames to be able to do these things. Maybe it's to capture still some of these issues that may require a part 2 post-election.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. And I just ask the staff to remember too that often there's feedback through either this year's AP or previous LTPs or even our first AP that people have put forward suggestions. Sadly, those don't seem to have progressed how the submitter would have liked. So these opportunities, when we get them, councillors are going to grasp every opportunity that we can to try and progress these issues forward before they're put in the file for the next council. So thank you.
Thank you. We will move to the next slide.
Great. So the third amendment that we're going to discuss is unsafe verandas. So we're proposing to update the general bylaw to require building occupiers and owners in the city centre and certain commercial zones in the district to maintain their veranda. So under the district plan, these buildings are required to have a veranda, but they're not required to maintain them. So this clause will require them to maintain them. If they don't maintain them and they do pose a risk, council will be able to issue a notice requiring them to fix it and then recover costs if ignored, and then council can carry out the work and recover those costs afterwards.
And councillors, this highlight, we've got a couple of live examples of this where we've suffered the implications and the risks that creates for our public space, where we believe a veranda is in extremely poor condition. We're having to use the Building Act as an onerous process, which does not give us the immediate sense of safety for our public space. So this is another reason it comes back under the safety banner to act. At the moment, where we've got these kind of problems, we're left in a situation where we're coning off areas of our footpath, which is not, in our opinion, a valid use of our footpath space, while we go through a laborious process to seek the owner's agreement to improve or take safety measures.
Thank you. This one is fairly straightforward. And there's no questions. We'll go to the next one. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just another point of clarification. So what you're proposing here is only for the CBD?
So under the district plan, the city centre zone and certain commercial zones, and all the commercial zones, are required to have a veranda. So it will be anything under the district plan that's required to have a veranda.
Urban centres would come into this, where there's verandas in the same kind of risk area where it comes over a public footpath.
Right. So the dangerous, affected and unsanitary buildings policy of 2020, this is just part of that, obviously. Does that apply to the rest of the city, including residential areas?
So the dangerous, affected and sanitary buildings policy, so we had a discussion with the relevant team to decide whether this can be added to that. Unfortunately, the kind of threshold of what's considered dangerous is really high, so this is why this clause is proposed for the general bylaw, and then we can go on to the day policy in a bit more detail afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're also looking to update the day policy. So this policy was simply up for review. So as part of the requirements, we have to consult when we update it. So the policy in general outlines how the district identifies and assesses buildings that are unsafe, damaged or unsanitary, and the actions that council will take. So the proposed amendments to the policy are fairly minor, but they do better reflect recommendations and guidance from MBIE.
Any questions on this one? Councillor Peterson?
Thank you for your indulgence. Just the reason I'm asking this, I've probably raised this before. There's a building on Devon Street, just past the shops on the corner of Ranulph and Devon Street, that's been there for years. It's been partially burnt. It's completely surrounded by trees and scrub. If that ever caught fire, that whole lot would go up, including the neighbours next door. So how is that still there?
Because it's not dangerous or unsanitary. Yep, because it's on private property, so we've got potential under the fire risk to work with the fire authority around that. But Council, we've got some rather ugly history of trying to deal with private, dangerous and derelict buildings on private property. So one of the actions they can take is to make it safe. So just making sure it's fenced or people aren't able to enter onto private property gives them the protection. So we've been in here in the past. So again, if you've got a shed falling down on the back of your property or something like that, you know, because it's got no public access, it limits our scope of what we can do. So that's circumstances on private property, unless it has a detrimental effect or creates a risk to properties around it or to other people, we don't have many grounds to take action. Property rights supreme.
Right, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Worship. I'm sure this is just a typo and hopefully you guys have already picked it up. I'll just get to it. 24.3, no, sorry. 24.2, clause 29.1 does not apply, but I couldn't find 29.1. So you might like to have a look at that.
Thank you. We'll take that as noted.
Okay, so in terms of the engagement for this consultation, so it will be a largely digital campaign with some targeted meetings. So we've already met with some of the retailers, so we hope to meet with them again to discuss the proposals in more detail. We'll do a letter drop as well as email as many owners and occupiers in the city centre and the commercial zones that own a veranda so that they're aware of their new requirements. We'll do the posters and information stands at the customer centre, the hub, as well as the library, and then of course we'll send some more targeted emails. So examples are Chamber of Commerce and Rotorua NZ. So in terms of the next steps, so the consultation period hopefully will run from next Tuesday, 1st of July to the 1st of August. Early August we'll have hearings, and in late August the final bylaw and policies will be adopted.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions on the engagement process? No. I do want to acknowledge to the team that it is a great document. I thought that the SOP, the Statement of Proposal for Inner City Safety Bylaw and Policy Reviews, it was very easy to read and identify what the key issues are as well. Only question I had is obviously some members of the public may wish to dive down to the edited version or potential edited version of the document. Will that also be available in attachments on the website?
For sure, definitely.
Thank you. There appear to be no final questions, so I'd like to move this. Do I have a seconder? Seconded, Councillor Wang. This is now open for discussion. Thank you very much, Alexandra and JP. Is there any further discussion on this item? Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to clarify something that Councillor O'Brien alluded and used my name in around the trolley situation. When I got involved 3 years ago, the situation was way, way worse than it is currently. Fenton Street was a war zone. We had a major problem. I just wanted to be clear, in my view, the trolley situation is a lot better than it once was. And it's a commendation to the staff that have been working on that.
Totally agree. Thank you for that. Councillor Kaifong, followed by Wang.
Just one brief comment just around the inconsistency of some of the documents. I just wondered if the motion just needs a subject to minor edits after the word publishing, so it reads draft copies of the amended bylaws and policies be received and approved for publishing subject to minor edits. I just think that needs it there so that we're not just publishing the documents that we've got where there are inconsistencies.
Just check if Councillor Wang is a second.
Yes,
thank you. We'll add those few words, minor edit, thank you. Subject to minor edits.
Also, just confirming what Councillor Kaifong raised earlier around 150 instead of 75 for the...
Yeah, I have seen the team write down notes on those, and so those will be included as the minor edits.
Thank you.
And actually what I'll ask is that the final document be circulated to councillors as well after those minor edits taken. And there was no other speakers, so we will now put this to the vote, noting that it is to go out for consultation, and in August we will endeavour to have our hearings, deliberations and final decision. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any against? That is carried unanimously. Thank you, and thank you once again to the staff. We will now move on to our next item. We have adoption of council governance policies now. Can I please have a mover and a seconder to receive this? That's moved by Councillor Barker, seconded by Councillor Wang. All those in favour to receive, please say aye. And I'd now like to invite Debbie Cossa and Alexandra Beck to overview this report. And we are on page 29 of our main agenda.
Kia ora koutou. We're here to bring 3 policies to you today that are governance policies. Let's move that back a bit. They are the International Relations Policy, which is a consolidation of the previous mayor and elected representatives travel policy and the sister city relations policy, the conference attendance for elected members policy, and the elected members' membership of other entities policy. That policy was previously called the Mayor's and Councillors' membership of not-for-profit organisations policy. The reason for the change to elected members is we have community board members, also as representative of councillors on other entities, and so it's just widening that to be clear there. You've been provided in your pack the previous policies and also the revised policy. I think if we go on, if you've got any questions.
Thank you. And apologies, it was in the attachments under separate cover, not the main agenda, the actual policies themselves. So thank you very much for overviewing that. We open up now for any questions. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Debbie and Alex. Just a question regarding the line that says the purpose regarding conference attendance for elected members. The purpose of this policy is to guide decision-making regarding elected members representing Rotorua Lakes Council at conferences and professional development seminars. Does that mean that, let's say, for example, if I was invited to be a speaker at XYZ, rather than me attending a professional development seminar as a person trying to learn something?
Yes. I mean, if you are invited to be a speaker, often your attendance will be covered by the organisers, and if that's the case, this policy, you know, you can go. You don't have to do a business case to council to attend.
Right, but if I wanted to attend a professional development seminar that I'd spied and said, oh, that would be good, I could learn something from that, then this is covered with that as well.
It is.
Thank you.
Yeah, and sorry, probably a conversation with the Mayor as well.
Thank you.
Any further questions on any of the policies? No, they are very straightforward, but I do in particular want to mention that the international relations policy was certainly in need of an update. When I came in as mayor, and we were receiving both requests for international delegations and also requests to travel internationally. It wasn't quite clear, so I think it was fantastic not only to have this reconfirmed, so it's now there is a guideline to go by, but also to see some of the original documents as well of the sister cities that we have relationships with. So I do want to thank staff very much for the time that was put into updating this, as it certainly did need it. So I'll ask for a mover and a seconder and then open up for discussion. Moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Waru. Is there any further discussion on this? Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you, Worship, and I'm generally in favour of everything that was put in the words. I don't have much to... The only concern I have, and I see, not for myself, but sometimes I see public criticism of certain trips, etc. like that. And I think, for me, the area of making a business case is a very difficult one. And I appreciate it's a very hard thing to put into words, because if it's building up a relationship with, say, a government major trading partner, but may not be of much impact to Rotorua particularly, it's hard to put that into how much money Rotorua is going to get out of it, but it's a very good look for, say, the North Island or us as a country, i.e. when you go to a Merrill Forum, for example, overseas. So when people make that criticism, I've actually tried myself to wrap my head around how you would put a business case forward, and some of them are going to be very difficult, and it's going to be hard to actually put figures to, and then have that as a follow-up and say, well, was it a success against this criteria or not? So it's going to be a very difficult thing to move forward. So I think, generally speaking, I'm in favour of what the changes here. I do take on board, as I say, people that say it's a lot of money being spent and we should be using a business case, but it is a very difficult, and particularly yourself as our mayor, because it should be good that you're going out trying to establish links for us as a tourism city. So I appreciate the changes that have been made, and I'm supportive. Again, if anyone else has any better ideas about how we can quantify a business case in the future, be happy to hear suggestions. So I think you're between a rock and a hard place to some degree, so I just thought I'd put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just carrying on from Councillor O'Brien's comments, a lot of the pushback that we get from the community is because they don't understand where the funding comes from. So I think we could do a better job at explaining how we fund these trips, whether that's an actual dedicated page on the website or some mechanism that we explain that because we're actually generating revenue by having delegations visit us. We don't just do that for free. That they come here, we earn revenue from that, and then that's reinvested in these kind of trips. I think they would understand a lot easier the benefits of that, especially if they know it's not coming out of their pockets.
Absolutely, and thank you for raising that, Councillor Patterson. I have actually spoken with a number of different mayors, including those that did attend alongside me in China at the China-New Zealand Mayoral Forum. As far as we're aware, we are the only ones that have come up with this excellent idea, and I know many others thought we were very smart in doing so, being able to cover the cost for our travel, because it is criticism that all councils are open to. Which is just part of being transparent to our ratepayers. So thank you very much for the comments that have been provided. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Your Worship, and following on from those comments, I think it's important for the community to understand that we are a tourist town, and promoting ourselves internationally does make sense for us. I might be less enthusiastic about an international relations policy if we weren't a tourist town, but hey, we are. In fact, we invented tourism here. It's in our DNA, so that's something that I will support, of course.
Thank you very much. So that has been moved and seconded. We'll now put this to the vote. Ask you to raise your hands. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Any that against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. So we now will move to remits to Local Government New Zealand Annual General Meeting. We will be noting one, which is the Tauranga City Council one, provided by Mayor Mahe. And I do just want to let councillors know that we have received the from Local Government New Zealand the remits that are proposed to go to the AGM. So how this works is councils are required to have five other councils support it for the remit to go ahead. Tauranga City Council has asked us, so we will do that. And then at the council meeting next week, you will receive the full remits that will go to AGM, at which opportunity will take a vote, and that's how both myself and the Deputy Mayor will vote accordingly at the AGM at our GNZ conference. But I will take a mover and a seconder to receive this. It's moved by Councillor Wang, seconded by Councillor Waru. All those in favour to receive, please say aye. Thank you. And I just check if Greg wants to overview. Nope, I think that covers it. So we will, it's not our remit, it's from Tauranga City Council, so we will take it as read. And I do just ask if, so this is on page 32 of our main agenda. It is a little bit difficult for staff to answer any questions because it's not from us. Sorry, it is under the separate cover attachment, so we'll just give councillors a moment to get there.
Page 48, if that helps you, Bishop.
Page 48, yeah, I was looking at the motion.
Of the attachments. Yeah.
And maybe just for those who are live streaming, the remit subject is review of local government arrangements to achieve a better balance, and the remit itself is asking that Local Government New Zealand works with the government and councils to review local government arrangements, including functions and structure of local government, to achieve a better balance between the need to efficiently and effectively deliver services and infrastructure while enabling democratic local decision making and action by and on behalf of communities. So, look, what we might do, since we don't really have anyone that can answer questions, we'll just open up for general discussion, if there is any, before we put this to the vote. And I will just ask if anybody wishes to move, whether they support or not support first, so that we can open up for discussion. You guys want to give it a go? Councillor Barker was signalling first, or
I actually just was wondering, Your Worship, whether you'd had any conversations with the Tauranga Council about this, that can provide any more context around the words achieve a better balance, and what their key concerns are, because they sort of aren't clearly identified in this remit from my point of view. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we are aware that Tauranga City Councillors would like to catch up with us on a number of matters in future. I have had a brief chat with the Mayor, not actually specifically on this remit, however, as has also been put forward in a notice of motion from one of our councillors, which did raise the attention of Tauranga City Council and others in our region, who were also actually interested in finding efficiencies. My understanding is that the Tauranga City Council understand that, as well as the local water reform and the previous local government, what was it called again? Future of local government, that they do think that it's about time that it is looked at on basically whether there could be any efficiencies on working together. So we really have had very little discussion, no formal discussion, but what I would say is going down this track would certainly be towards amalgamation or potentially shared services such as local water done well, is how I've read it.
Supplementary to that question, I see, Your Worship, that they've been supported by the metro sector. Does that mean there's a number of councils that have supported this already?
Yes, that's my understanding as well. So Rotorua falls into the rural and provincial sector, and metro are the larger cities. Tier 1 maybe, I think they may be called. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to move that we do not support the proposed remit. Putting aside my general allergy for LGNZ, the Prime Minister is on record as of Monday this week saying that he's open to scrapping regional councils amid RMA reform. So it appears that the central government of its own initiative is already considering a broad range of options as to how we can make councils operate even more efficiently than they presently do. There is some overlap between the district councils and the regional council, so I would have to agree with Prime Minister Luxon on this occasion that I would also be open to scrapping regional councils if at this stage, but looks like all of those bases are already covered anyway, so I don't think the remit really compels the government or asks the government to do anything it's not already doing. And the Prime Minister's statements probably weren't made at the time that the remit was first adopted in anyway.
Thank you. And Councillor Brown, sorry, I missed you earlier.
Thank you, Worship. I think Councillor Barker's picked up on this. It seems awfully fluffy to me, but I'm happy to take a stare because you and the Deputy Mayor will be championing this on our behalf. If you think it's a good thing, I'm happy to be directed by you.
Thank you. As you have asked, what I do just want to point out is what the remit is seeking is for a work program between central government and local government and LGNZ to be able to undertake the review. And they do say ensuring local communities are well considered. In my personal opinion, while I can appreciate the desire for efficiencies and also the comments that have been made regarding regarding regional council, if it was more specific to the functions and purpose of regional councils and local councils after the RMA reforms, which will be quite significant, then I will be supportive. At this stage, I am aware of the significant amount of work that has occurred previously under the Future for Local Government, and so I'm not convinced that there is further work program that needs to be required. A number of councillors attended a number of DIA workshops and Zone 2 workshops that were undertaken at the time to look at how the sector of local government could be improved. And actually it's unfortunate that all that great work is still sitting in that document, but we haven't really seen much action from it. So I am happy to support the not support proposal, which has been moved by Councillor Lee, and we are still awaiting a seconder. Seconded by Councillor Brown. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your Worship, as some other councillors have alluded to, Councillor Barker in particular, frankly, the remit subject would have been enough for me. The rest of it, when I first read it, I thought I was reading a script from Yes Minister. Obviously, the typist was getting paid by the word, so congratulations, they achieved their bonus there. The whole thing sort of reads, I'll be honest, as superfluous, because it's like, at first to me, that's what LGNZ is set up for. And it's part of the constitution, and as you say, there's several projects that have been, even under their current workload, which you can find online, there are things that match this either exactly or are working around it through various other things like Free Waters and other projects. So I'm happy, as per Councillor Brown, I'm happy to let you move it forward if you feel it. I just find the whole thing a little bit confusing. I don't really understand what it is they're trying to achieve that's not already part of the conversation between either the government or LGNZ or in their own spheres, where perhaps one another don't quite agree. So yeah, for me it's all a little bit pie-in-the-sky stuff, but I'm happy to be guided by you and the Deputy Mayor when you're there and make the best call. Thank you.
Thank you. And there is also the option, if you don't have a view on this, to abstain. I do appreciate there's not much included in the remit. So just check if there are any final comment. Councillor Kaifong?
Happy to support the motion. I also didn't support Councillor O'Brien's motion previously along similar lines. I think we need to be careful what we wish for, so rather not participate at this time. Let's just wait and see. I think there's plenty of opportunity at a later date, but we don't need to be there right now, leading the charge on something that we just don't know enough about.
Thank you. Well, it has been moved and seconded with not support. So I will put that to the vote now. We'll ask if you could please raise your hand that the Council not support the proposed remits of Tauranga City Council at the Local Government New Zealand AGM. Please raise your hand to not support. Thank you. Any that are against not supporting? Thank you. That has, and one abstention. Thank you. That has been carried. And we look forward to seeing the further remits that will come next week. So we now have our last report. We take our financial update, page 35 of the agenda. We invite David Jensen and also Michelle Overbeek to overview this report and ask for a mover and a seconder to receive it. Thank you, Councillor O'Brien, seconded by Councillor Barker. All those in favour to receive, please say aye. Any against? That's carried. And we'll now hand over to David and Michelle to overview our financial update. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Worship and elected members. So this report and presentation cover the period to the end of May 2025, so 11 months through the financial year. At the end of May, we have an operating surplus of $165,000, and that's after allowing for RLC works. You'll see there with income that we are $8.2 million behind budget, and as per previous months, that has been driven by our capital subsidies and by lower development contributions. Now, one thing I will remind the members of is that when it comes to capital subsidies, we do hold a number of subsidies, particularly relating to the museum, on our balance sheet that we have not called revenue yet. So at the end of the financial year last year, we have $8.6 million of money we have received for the museum that is tied to certain waypoints in the construction of the museum. So at the end of the financial year, one of the jobs for the teams to do is to look at what we have achieved on the museum, look at what the terms of the grant were, and see what we can, of that $8.6 million we have in our balance sheet, what we can call as revenue. So we'll be looking to close that gap, just depending on the terms of the grant and how far we've gone through the museum project this year. Development contributions, as I've covered a month or two ago, will be behind budget at the end of the year, just while we work to flush through a number of those applications that we received while we didn't have a policy in place, so flushing through those non-paying applications. With regards to expenditure, the RLC Works Department has a current deficit of just over $400,000. So, as I've mentioned before, we came into the financial year with a statement of intent from Infracore showing a projected deficit of $3 million. We've been working on a projection of between $800,000 to $1 million after bringing it in-house, and at the end of May we have a deficit for RLC Works of just over $400,000. So we are working to close that gap as best we can as we move through that integration process. And the expenditure also includes the support given for events and venues that wasn't envisaged as part of the LTP, but came through as a council decision when events and venues transferred to Rotorua NZ. That has been corrected in the annual plan next year, but it is just included in the operating expenditure this financial year. With regards to capital expenditure, we are $22.8 million behind our year-to-date budget. The single biggest contributor to that is the CIP stormwater budget. That's about $7 million underspent compared to budget. There's some delays as we move through variation process and just some rephasing of when some of those projects will take place. So at the moment, we're not showing a reduction of the overall program. It's more timing of when that work will occur. And with regards to our council's debt, so at the end of May, we had net debt of $451 million. In the month of June, we have borrowed an additional $10 million. So you'll see at the end of the year, our net debt will be $10 million higher than that number there. But when we compare where we forecast our debt to be at the end of June, it will be around $10 million lower than we had in the annual plan. So net debt at the end of this financial year is forecast to be lower than we had in the annual plan. Just before I move on, there are a number of processes that are taking place at the moment with preparation for year-end. So we do have all of them on site looking through our position at the end of May, doing some interim work. We do have some valuations that have taken place over the last month. So we've revalued our art collection, which has shown a gain of about $3 million. It's up to about $25 million worth of art. Our buildings have been revalued upwards by about $17 million, and our land has been revalued upwards by about $60 million. So overall, about a $70 million gain in our revaluations through this year that we are working through with our auditors to make sure that they agree with the assumptions made by the valuers and making sure that our numbers that we have in the annual report match reality. And as I've shown graphically before, we have we're currently showing an operating surplus of $165,000, and that is after allowing for RLC works. So if we excluding RLC works, we'd be showing a surplus of about $600,000. But all in, we're $165,000 surplus, and looking to see looking how we're tracking through the remainder of the financial year, we're showing that the core operations of council are likely to show a small surplus, normalised for the operations of council. So I'll take the rest of the report as read. I'm happy to take questions on the report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? Councillor Waru.
Tēnā koe te manukura. Kia ora kōrua. Thank you for the report. Just a question around the RLC Works Department, or formerly Infracore. How did we manage what were some of the things that you've done to manage to save from a $3 million deficit now to where you're projecting to be $500K to $800K deficit? Where did those savings come from?
There's a number of places where that has occurred. So, as I've covered in a previous council meeting, a small element of that was due to legislation change. So, when Infracore presented their statement of intent, there was an allowance made for traffic management, which disappeared after a particular legislation was reformed. I think when we look at the composition of what Infracore does and the nature of the workforce, they are carrying a larger vacancy than the rest of councils. There's an element of underspend there just because they don't have the staff, but also there are some synergies that we have been able to gain just by having control of the entire value chain and making sure that we have an end-to-end process, more direct control of coming into RLC works.
Councillor Waru, if I can also add. You might recall that when we brought you the decision on bringing the staff and assets of Infracore in-house, we undertook that without visibility of what exactly was planned. There was a service level risk and a financial risk, but we would manage within the financial envelope. So the team and I have taken that very seriously and worked as far as we can within the financial envelope. What we haven't done is set up that unit for success going forward. So we haven't made the decisions yet on a forward-looking path. What is the right structure? What are the right roles? We still need to work through that analysis. So I just want to, it's a good finance team will say great result, but I think we just need to be conscious that we haven't landed in a position where we know what the right service level and resourcing is going forward to continue to deliver a sustainable service for that team. By that team for the community. So both in terms of the parks and open spaces and in terms of the water utilities.
Thank you, through you, Te Manukura. Thank you, Andrew, for your kōrero, because that was actually going to lead to my next question, but you've answered it now, so thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you very much, David and Michelle, for your always excellent reports. Very helpful. I hope you don't mind, but my question is probably more directed at the CE. And just with great news about the valuations and revaluations moving upwards, on one hand. On the other hand, do you have concern that where we're sitting with our long-term plan for this AP and then obviously next year, are we going to require a lot more resource for depreciation? Because I can see, there's so many more of these assets going up, and again, there's Infracore, which is still working our way through now. Are you comfortable where we're sitting, or do you have concerns?
Through the Chair, if we look at where the revaluation gains primarily have been made this year, it's in land, and we don't. That doesn't have a depreciation impact, so that won't carry through to the LTP. When we set the last LTP, we made some allowances for what the gain we made allowances for revaluation gains built into the LTP. So we do have some step changes in depreciation built in. We probably aren't in the position to understand whether those assumptions are enough at the moment, but we have made, as best we can, some generous allowances for future years' depreciation. So I wouldn't. I said we'll be in a better position coming into the next LTP to understand what that might be and if there are any gaps.
Thank you. So do I take it, and again, I'm very conscious not to put words in your mouth, are you comfortable where we sit when you look at some of these new valuations coming through at the moment? That we tie up with budget, or that there's nothing major in terms of budget blowouts?
The impact from this year's revaluation will be very, very minimal, just because it's primarily land. Mm-hmm. I guess I can't preempt what might happen next year. So coming into the next LTP, we still have another revaluation cycle, which I don't have complete visibility on. All I can say is that we have made we've made professional judgments and allowances for step changes in depreciation, so we feel reasonably comfortable at the moment, unless something out of the ordinary occurs next year.
Thank you. And I take it that also would include, say, the three waters at this stage before whatever happens. I take it the vote obviously this morning will affect that, but we're comfortable with those assets at the moment before the transfer over?
We undertook a revaluation of the wastewater treatment plant last year, so we feel comfortable that that aspect of Three Waters will not be touched again for another couple of years. We feel. I think it's important to note, even if we don't revalue a class, we are required to do a fair value assessment and make sure that things haven't drifted too far. So if we will be doing a fair value assessment of those Three Waters assets as part of this annual report, and that'll be a trigger for us to see if things have moved materially. But at the moment, we don't have causes for concern.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Bishop.
And Councillor O'Brien, I rarely miss the opportunity to answer one of your questions. So if I could say, to add to what David has said, my more of a concern, if you were looking for one of those, would be the gap between the book value revaluations and the actual cost to rebuild our assets, which is a gap that is standard for practice in New Zealand for councils for non-Three Waters and infrastructure assets. So for our non-Three Waters and infrastructure assets, what we're disclosing in the revaluations is the book value. It's not the rebuild value if we were to do that. So that is the reason. What I'm doing about that is, as we've talked about, doing a full property strategy review to understand which of our assets going forward might place a burden on future generations of ratepayers, and trying to get ahead of that and bring to the next council some strategic decisions around whether you hold on to or make some other decisions about those assets.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, thank you again for your report. Just with regards to, I guess, following on from the C's comments there, and for the benefit of anyone who's listening or watching, we're currently sitting at 469 million gross debt, 451.1 net debt. What is the gap between that and our debt ceiling?
From memory, we are currently around we're around 200. We're below 210% debt to revenue at the moment. We're around that mark. So our self-imposed limit and our treasury policy is 250%. So currently, we have a 40% gap between where we are and what our self-imposed limit is.
So 40%, that's
40% of our revenue.
A substantial amount.
Correct.
What is that actually in dollars? Roughly. Don't know.
Make me get my calculator out, sorry, Councillor.
So while David's tapping away on its calculator, I'll just make two quite hopefully salient points there. One is that our debt is different to the way private enterprises, particular homeowners and households incur their debt. So when a household purchases a property, they incur the debt, the whole debt of the value of their borrowing at that one hit. Whereas council, when you make a decision to invest in a $60 million wastewater treatment plant, you don't draw down the debt then, we draw it down progressively. So council might sometimes go, well, we're not making decisions that are incurring more debt, but our debt is going up. And that's quite normal, if somewhat counterintuitive, because we are drawing down progressively on debt of decisions made previously by council. I think it's useful to think about what new debt this council has committed, and it's pretty low. Yeah. David, you wanted to?
Sorry, through the chair, we currently have a gap of around 160 to 170 million before we would hit our self-imposed limit.
Right, thank you. So what I was trying to get at there was if in a few years there's a major natural disaster and we have to dip into our borrowings again, then we actually have a bit of leeway to still do that. So,
through the chair, yes, we do. We will always have the gap between our self-imposed limit and the LGFA limit, and then we will have whatever headroom is below that as well.
Excellent, thank you. That's reassuring. So then we have the other question, which I've asked numerous times. Now we're here in June, end of financial year rapidly approaching. Have we got any clarity on where the business and economic development rate is? Are we going to get a surplus from the short-term rentals?
No surplus through the chair. We will just break even if we look at what our revenue target was in the LTP versus what we have collected. So I guess it's important to note that in the lead up to the adoption of an annual plan or an LTP, we are required also to retest the properties that are included within the net. So we have had that piece of work undertaken, and we have identified an additional 100 odd properties that are now that were not within the net last year, that will be this year. And so we're refining our information every year and getting better at identifying which properties should be targeted with the policy settings as they are.
Great. So, sorry, just clarifying that, we will reach the goal that we set for this year?
Through the chair, yes, we will.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, there appear to be no further questions. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, David. And our final item for today is the confidential items to be released for the period September 2024 to May 2025. It's on page 42. I am happy to move. Do I have a seconder? That's seconded by Councillor Waru. Put that to the vote just to receive. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. And just invite Greg to overview this report.
Good afternoon, councillors. This is just a noting recommendation of the confidential items for the period September to May this year, and this is just releasing under clause 18.5 of our standing orders. I'm happy to take any questions on this and take the rest as read. I will try and answer what I can. If not, I will get back to you as soon as I can.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions? No. So we will put that. Oh yes, Councillor Waru.
Sorry, Te Mana Kura, so just through you, Greg. So all these now that have been released are able to be spoken about in public now.
Yeah, so what we've done is release the ones that the minutes are
Yes.
able to be released. Some of them, the reports are not to be released, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just making sure.
Thank you. That has been moved and actually it's just noting, so we don't need to have any further decision on that. So thank you very much, elected members and also staff. We appreciate that we have managed to get through quite a significant agenda today, and of course some significant decisions and soon consultation with the community as well. So I had the pleasure of opening up with a karakia, but I'd now like to invite Councillor Patterson to please close this meeting with the karakia.
Thank you, Worship, and I apologise for my tardiness earlier. So, as no doubt you started in Māori, I wasn't here to hear that te reo, so I will finish in English. Restrictions are moved aside so the pathway is clear to return to everyday activities, allied, enriched, unified and blessed.
Thank you very much, Councillor Patterson. I declare this meeting closed.